Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls. Thank you all for coming tonight. I am Laura Lenderman, the 502nd Air Base Wing Commander, and grateful that you're here. I know this is a challenging time of year for families and kids, so we appreciate you all taking time to meet with us tonight in this town hall. And we have a great group of folks here that want to help answer your questions. But most importantly, we want to hear from you. We want to listen and understand what your challenges are. We love for you to be as bold and honest and frank and direct as possible. That's why we're here. So if you're able to go online, we had a Lackland town hall last night and got some really good feedback. So I encourage everyone to speak their mind. That's what we're here for. And if with that, we're going to go through a couple of slides here in the beginning and then spend the majority of the time listening to your concerns. But before we get started, I want to introduce my team up here. So on my far right is Mr. Richard Trevino. He is new to our wing, but he's not new to Randolph. He has a long history here. He's been at Randolph for over 15 years. Used to be the base civil engineer here, and now he's our civil engineer for Joint Base San Antonio. So he knows a lot more. He was here before privatized housing, so he knows a lot more about housing than a majority of us in the room. So he's here to help us answer your questions. We also have Colonel Jeff Carter. If you haven't met Jeff, he's the executive agent for Randolph. So the way Joint Base San Antonio is set up, we're in charge of 3 bases, and so I have a colonel at each base that's responsible for the day-to-day questions and answers and issues that come up on the base. So, hi Sarah. All right. We also have Colonel Mark Robinson from the 12th Line Training Wing, the legacy wing here. So back in the day, his wing owned Randolph Air Force Base, but he's here as a mission partner, mutual support, and to also help us address your concerns, and also as a senior leader understand what's happening here at Randolph. All right, and then to my immediate right, we have our Hunt Housing team. We've got Audra, so nice, and hopefully many of you know Audra, and we just met Angela. Angela. So Angela works at a regional level, correct? So she has several bases within her portfolio. She just drove up from Laughlin today, so dealing with many of the concerns that we have here also at Laughlin. To my left, down in the front row, I've got my Vice Commander, Colonel Pete Valesky, U.S. Army, our Senior Civilian and Civilian Vice Director, Mr. Carlos Basu, Colonel Scott Thompson, also not a stranger to Joint Base San Antonio. He's my executive agent over at Lackland and has been here for 4 different assignments. And then to their far right, we have Christian De La Rosa from our civil engineering team, and also James Graham from our civil engineering team here at Randolph. And then right behind him is Ed. Ed is going to be taking some notes tonight, as well as some other folks in the room, so we can capture all your comments. We also have PA in the back, so we aren't able to live stream this town hall due to the limitations of this building and the limitations of our building yesterday. But it is being recorded, so if for some reason you don't want to be recorded, I don't want that to stop you from coming to the microphone. What I'd like you to do is still come to the microphone if you're comfortable, but then let our PA team in the back know. You've got Jet, you can't really see him, he's in the dark there, but just let him know your name and you don't want to be recorded, and we can edit your piece out. But please feel free, again, speak your mind. This is a non-attribution conversation, and we're here to hear what you have to say. I know we just had a latecomer here, Colonel Sam Field. He's our executive agent, U.S. Army at Fort Sam Houston. So with that, a couple of slides. Next slide, okay. So again, this is the purpose for tonight. We're here to listen to your concerns and help advocate for better quality of housing in an open, transparent, and non-attribution environment. So one of the concerns that our Secretary of the Air Force and Chief of Staff of the Air Force have is that there'll be retribution, or there'll be some sort of chain of command issues for the things that you bring up. And I'm here to tell you that that is not the case. This is completely non-attributional. There is no chain of command involved. The only chain of command is me, and who I want to report to is my boss. But that's really to improve the housing. It's not to tell on anyone or bring up any issues or specific names. With that, next slide. So Secretary and the Chief, this is their statement that our airmen, and I'll say our joint servicemen and women, because I know we have more than airmen on Randolph at all of our locations. We have all services representative. So it's really our servicemen and women and their families should have military housing that will not adversely impact their health and safety. More importantly, they should have confidence that they can identify problems without retaliation or fear of reprisal. This is about taking care of our people, and it's Commander's business, and it's why I'm here tonight. Next slide. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Hunt Housing for a couple of slides. This is really just in our housing reviews and our meetings with some of the families. There's some folks that maybe don't know the work order process. Many of you do, I'm sure, and from our understanding, many of you are frustrated with the work order process, and we'll talk to that. But this is the actual process, and I'll have Audra walk through it and answer any of your questions when we get to the open forum. But for now, we're just going to go over the process.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to take a moment before we go through the process to thank you for coming tonight. It's really great to get in a venue like this and take the opportunity to learn how we can grow and be better in the future and serve you and your families better. So to kind of run through the work order process, we have a few different ways that you can actually submit a work order. We take work orders 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We actually have an on-call technician within that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So first up, if you call between business hours 8 and 5 p.m., we have a resident service specialist in the office who is designated to each area, and she can take your work order right there on the dime, put it in, and send it over to our maintenance team. If you call after hours, we also have an emergency work order line after hours. So it's the same phone number as if you would just call the office during the day, the 210-659-9061. If you are just right in the middle of something and you're like, I have this routine service request that I really need to submit, then you can actually go online and submit a work order, and that's at randolphfamilyhousing.com. However, we do recommend that you do not submit any emergency or urgent work orders online. The reason for this being is it comes directly to our email, it doesn't go into the system, and we want to make sure that we respond and take care of everything in a timely manner. We may miss it if you submit it through this online venue, as far as responding within that timely frame. So an example of this would be if you are at home and your AC goes out and it's 7:30 at night and you're like, oh, I'm just going to go onto the online portal and put in a work order. We may not see that until 8 a.m. the next day, and you've gone all night without AC. So we do recommend that you please call the number if you have an emergency or even an urgent after hours. I already went over this, but you can also come in person and submit requests. We do have RSSs designated to each area. So as most of you know, Lisa Joaquin is over our duplex housing, Terry Hefford is over our circle housing, and then Melody Gallego is our executive homes essentially coordinator, so she handles all of our executive homes. However, if you guys have a work order, you can, and maybe they're not in the office or something's going on, you can submit that with anybody on our team if you come in. We'll definitely take that and put that in. Next slide. Okay, so most of you know we are partnered with the Air Force and we have closing documents. So with closing documents comes compliance. And whenever they decided to privatize and create this contract, they set guidelines on what an emergency, an urgent, and a routine work order is. So from up here, I gave a couple of examples. Your routine work orders is the screen's broke, your fridge handle may be broken or cracked, or changing the HVAC filter, a dripping faucet, a loose handle, things like that considered routine work orders. Now, the goal is to respond within 3 business days. So that is actually 24 business hours. The goal for completion is to complete within 9 business days, 72 business hours. I do want to hit that over since I've been here, I'm going on 2 years, we did fall short of our routine urgents and emergencies. And I know that, I understand that. And our team has worked really hard with these lessons learned that we've had, and we have grown from that, and we've really improved. And I'm really proud to say that over the last 120 days, we've had consistently less than 50 work orders. And we've responded and completed things in a timely manner. Now, there is some exceptions to this that I'll get through here at the bottom, but I did want to say we do understand the timeliness of maintenance is always a hot topic and something that we knew we needed to address. We put the team in place to address it, and that's something that we're consistently and constantly working on. Urgent work orders. So this is all of your sinks are clogged, your bathroom sink is clogged, your range or oven is inoperable, you have defective outlets, your garbage disposal isn't functioning, and so our response is within 4 hours and completion is within 24 hours. Emergencies, this is safety, life, death situation. You don't have AC in your home, your refrigerator's not cooling, smell of gas, your toilets aren't working, environmental calls, detectors sounding, gas leak. So it's really all of your serious situations, and our goal is to respond within 1 hour of you calling, submitting, coming in with that work order, and completing within 24 hours from that time frame. So some exceptions to this policy come in with, so we come out, we respond, and we have to go back and order a part. So that essentially goes into a carve-out function, and it turns to a pending part. So it may not be completed within that 24-hour time frame. Another example would be a resident appointment. If we don't have PTE and you say, hey, I really want this, it's an emergency, it needs to be taken care of, but I'm really not going to be home until 2 p.m. Can you guys come at 2 p.m.? So that we wouldn't be able to respond within that 1 hour time frame to complete it. Another carve-out function is a follow-on. So we respond to the initial request, and we see this a lot with our roof leaks. We come in, we assess, yes, there's a roof leak. However, it's still raining outside, so we can't get on the roof and repair that. So that would be a follow-on, and that would be an exception to the policy. Next slide. I actually kind of went through all of this, but some good tips. So all residents, you can schedule appointments, and we have incorporated a system that has really worked well with us recently, and that is Danelle, our warehouse supervisor. Every time we submit a work order in-house, she picks it up on her end, and she sends out an email, hey, and I don't know if some of you guys have had this experience yet, but so she'll say, hey, maintenance team, got your work order, we'll be in touch with you, it's assigned to this technician, and that's kind of the initial email. From there, Robert Harris or even Danelle will probably reach out again, and has reached out again and said, hey, your work order is scheduled for Tuesday at 2 p.m. We'll be there to take care of it. And great, okay, I know someone's coming, Tuesday at 2 p.m. And we found this to be very effective and something that we're going to continue to do. But just know that if you do call in a work order, you can request. Obviously, we're going to have to look at the schedule and make sure all the stars are aligned. But you have the option to request an appointment, so that's always good to know. Back, please. So another key thing that we implemented, and we really got some of this feedback from the CEL survey in the comments, was upon completion of every service request, there is it's completed in our system, but we have the RSS who sends out a warm call. So they'll call you, email you, and it's like 5 simple questions. Hey, did the technician complete the job? Hey, did they clean up after themselves? And those are very valuable to us because we can address things that maybe weren't addressed to the standard that you wanted it to be addressed to. And as soon as the girls get those back, they forward them on to Robert and myself, and we can get with that technician and say, hey, this actually wasn't done, or hey, there's follow-up to this, or whatever the case may be. So those are very valuable to us. Part of that too is we also get work order surveys. So please, if you guys have the opportunity, fill out those work order surveys, because that's just another avenue. Robert and I pull those every single Monday and we review. He's reaching out and saying, hey, we saw your comment, what can we do better? How can we fix this? It may be something as simple as, they left their tools, or they didn't show up in a timely manner, or it took a little bit for the guys to get it fixed, but now it's fixed. We want to hear all that feedback so we can take it back to our team and help in the future and make it better in the future. Another good thing about the surveys is HMO does review our surveys, and it does go up to Air Force leadership as well. Same thing with Hunt Corporate. They review all of our work order surveys, so it's really imperative that you guys take the time to do that for us. Reports are generated daily, so each morning we meet and we go over, okay, what do we have open? What's scheduled for today? Are the parts ordered? So we are constantly looking at that, and I think that's been key over the last 120 days to really keeping the numbers under control. It's the communication piece and just the oversight of everything. And then next slide, I think that's everything. Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Audra. All right, we're going to release all these slides too. I know they're kind of hard to read, from especially even in the front row, but definitely in the back. But these are the points of contact for you to reach out to, and this slide is really important for folks that feel like they don't have a vote or they don't have an advocate. So what I wanted to highlight is, again, Mr. Trevino at the top. Myself, I'm your advocate. Mr. Trevino, Lieutenant Colonel Andy Cullen is one of his deputies. I introduced Christian. We've introduced Ed. And James Fisher is over all of housing. We also have Elvira at Lackland. And then a very important person that if you haven't met her, it's Diane Butler. And she's here tonight as well. So she is your advocate. She works for the Air Force. She doesn't work for Hunt. And she works for Mr. Trevino, and she works for me. In addition, after all these conversations have been going on nationwide, I was talking to the Air Force Civil Engineer Center. And another initiative that the Chief of Staff and our Secretary are looking to implement is a 1-800 number. And so if you're not comfortable or you're just not satisfied or with the local leadership, military or civilian or privatized owners, that'll be a 1-800 number that goes directly from you to the Air Force Civil Engineering Center when you have issues. So look for that to come out soon. In addition, the Secretary and the Chief of Staff are working through the details of a Bill of Rights. And this is going to be great. This is going to be huge for all the residents who feel like they don't have any say and they don't have any options. So this Bill of Rights would do things like allow you to withhold payment. It would allow you to break your lease if you're not satisfied with the customer care that you're getting. So these are great initiatives. They're going to be one step to help us do better, improve, and respond to the work orders and the concerns, health and safety concerns that you have. So with that, next slide, I'd like to turn it over to all of you. And I know there's lots of families here and lots of young children, so if there's some families that need to leave early, I would love for you to get to the mic first. This is your opportunity, and it can be a question, it can be a statement, it can be just, I'm frustrated, and this is why. So I appreciate you all being here again, and we look forward to hearing your comments.
I have some noisy kids, so I'll go first. I don't have a question specifically, but just kind of a statement of how I feel and general comments. So my name's Christine Carroll, and I've been a resident here for about a year at Randolph, and I want to say thank you to General Linderman for hosting this and organizing this to let our concerns be voiced. It really means a lot to know that we're being heard. Like many of the people here, I have serious health and safety concerns about my home. Cockroaches have infested my home since before we moved in. And despite using all the pest control that housing offers, my own pest control, I found the enormous bugs. You know how big they are. They're the size of my thumb. And their feces all over my house, including my children's bedrooms, my bedroom, and in the bathroom while my son was taking a bath. Up to 5 to 6 per day I was killing when we first moved in, and I was basically laughed off by housing, just saying, oh, well, that's just Texas. I don't feel like that's just Texas. I have friends in other housing units that have said, oh, we've seen 10 in 10 in the time that we've been here, like a year and a half. 10 total. So I'd say my case is pretty extreme. I have mold growing in my bathroom, and I have a child that has severe mold allergies. I have lead paint that is peeling, and Hunt tried to fix it, but it wasn't properly taken care of. My furnace closet is terrifying. The insulation, and it has duct tape around the insulation. It looks like it's been melted with a blowtorch. That is how horrible it looks. My house and many of the houses on base make Section 8 housing look appealing. Is this really the way that we're treating our nation's defenders? Our family pays Hunt Military Communities $1,815 to live in a slum while low-income families across our great nation live in better, safer housing. Home is supposed to be a haven, a place where your family can go to be safe away from the cares of the world. I don't need a new home. I don't care. I don't need a beautiful home. I just want a safe place that when I put my 2 babies to bed, I can rest assured that they're safe and they're not being harmed by the place that's supposed to shelter and protect them. Everyone here knows that their active duty service member is sworn to protect the nation's enemies, foreign and domestic. Our housing should not be one of those enemies. The least Hunt Military Communities can do is provide a safe place for their families to raise their families. That's all I ask. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for sharing. What I'd like to have happen is, as you're finished speaking, if you could just take a minute and go to the back of the room. I have staff members back there who are committed to taking down your contact information, and I would like to personally collect that at the end of this town hall so that I can follow up and personally track the things that are evolving or the things that haven't been attended to. So that way we can kind of get a flow of, I can see that people are speaking and then people are getting their names and we don't have a flood at the very end of this event. So if you could take some time and just get some contact information. Which survey?
Sergeant Hamilton, the survey was directed by the Air Force. That was really for the military to gather when there's a safe life safety health concern. So we have your information. We haven't shared that with our partners. Yeah, that was for us. And if we do appreciate all your surveys, we are doing the same. We're tracking. We're working with Hunt, and we'll hold our partners accountable.
Go ahead, ma'am, please.
Hello, my name is Leilani Hamilton. My family and I have been residents here since December 2013, just over 5 years. We love the area and everything it has to offer our family. We, however, do not love or enjoy the house we have tirelessly tried to make a home. We have diligently tried to make the most of it and have fixed as much as we are allowed to per our lease, but it has not been an easy road. Dealing with Hunt housing has never been easy or pleasant. We arrived on station quite close to Christmas with a child on the spectrum and a 6-month-old baby. When we went in to inquire about a house on base, we were told there was one available. We asked to view it and were denied. We were told we had to sign the lease sight unseen. It was a take it or leave it situation that we were being given. So many other families have expressed that they too have dealt with the same situation upon arrival here. After signing the 12-month lease, did we discover why they didn't want us to preview the houses. The lack of care and maintenance was evident when we walked through and discovered a shower black with mold from ceiling to floor with an obviously leaking pipe. Other families have spoken to me about finding rodent droppings in plain sight in such abundance that it couldn't be missed. I've been told about walking into a home for the first time and finding spoiled food on the countertops. I could go on for hours about the lack of care or civility displayed by Hunt, but I won't. Instead, I made a list highlighting some of the common concerns I share with other residents. Work orders for maintenance are being marked as work completed when they haven't even come out to the home. Hunt housing team verbally telling us one thing, then backtracking and denying having ever said it. Hunt employees using social media as a platform to censor residents about their concerns. Work orders left half done with verbal promises to finish, but there being no follow-through. In the lease, it says we should notify them of excess moisture and leaks to prevent mold. Yet when we do, our reports are ignored or right out dismissed. Reports of mold problems are being dismissed as simply being dirt. The lack of HMO advocating for our residents. Several of us have gone to HMO, the Air Force side, and nothing has been done. With everything going on recently, another concern has risen. Hunt, being the largest military privatized housing company, should be leading the way in breaking down how they plan to rectify our housing concerns, but they are notably quiet. Other PPVs are being proactive, listing specific ways they plan to help residents, statements in support of Bill of Rights, yet Hunt is quiet. I won't take up much more of your time. I do have a couple of questions. What rights or recourse do we as residents have when someone from housing refuses to leave our home and they're not there in emergency capacity? Many of us are concerned with lead and mold poisoning. How can we get ourselves and our children tested when our doctors are denying such requests? What's the next step after all this? How is it going to be fixed?
So I believe you and I have spoke briefly, at least I think on one occasion, regarding some of your concerns. We are spearheading some customer service improvement developments, some of which not necessarily a Bill of Rights, but we are sharing our one plan. We have taken to social media and have shared several initiatives that we are working on. To your statement about the social media, sort of limiting what people are sharing on social media, we were very specific in how our social media is to be used. So that was something that corporate-wide we wanted to make sure that we were using it for the most effective form of communication possible, and trying to keep it positive for our residents, understanding that
and that's exactly what I mean about censoring.
So
nothing negative or any issues that we had with housing was allowed on social media. Only praise and positiveness, like you said, trying to keep it positive and lightly.
Well, so we do have negative reviews. I mean, you can go on, and the negative reviews haven't been removed. They're still there. They're still readily viewable.
But yet posts that were highlighting issues currently going on in housing were deleted.
There was, I'm not going to get into specifics, but there was a resident who was blocked because of continued violation of our social media policy.
That was updated after the post was deleted. I'm not going to take any more time here.
And I apologize that the feeling is out there that we're trying to hide something. If we were trying to hide something, I wouldn't be here. This is an Air Force-led town hall. Our position is we want to support our service members. Audra is a service member spouse. I'm a military brat. I was a former military spouse. My oldest son is serving in the Navy right now. So and he's stationed in Norfolk, that's run by Lincoln. So I am fully aware, and I'm also an advocate as a service member mother. So that's why I want to make sure that you share your contact information, and we can really help make it better, because we did have some challenges over here in the last couple of years, and that's one of the reasons why I made the change. Those of you who have been here longer than a year and a half, 2 years, there have been some improvements, maybe not as expeditiously as we would like, but if you compare how things are now to how things were 3, 4, 5 years ago, our survey results don't lie. There are different things that have developed that I feel Audra and her team are doing an amazing job on. But I'm sorry that you feel as though we're trying to be non-transparent, because that's not the intent.
And then just to add also, ma'am, the issue of the HMO. So this is for everyone. We are your advocate, and if we have not done that, so as General Linderman has indicated, you have our contact information. Worst case, if no one on that list, with the exception of the person that's on top, and that's me, by all means, please feel free to contact me, and I will personally get in touch with you. It's important that we address your concerns. You know, that is the intent of why we're here, so we can make sure that we address the issues, as I indicated at other town hall forums, even things that may seem to be quote unquote routine in nature. If there's just a lot of those, it becomes significant. So it's important that if there's issues with my staff, we will make sure that we take the steps necessary to rectify that. So that's my commitment to you in that regard. You have my contact info. We're going to make this available even after the meeting. If you want to come by and see me, I will gladly speak with you, and I'll even go visit. It's not a problem. So that's our commitment to you. We are your advocate. If you're having any issues with housing, doesn't matter what it is, please let us know. Thank you.
Christine, before you head out, I just wanted to make a comment. Thank you for standing up and voicing your concerns. It was really a powerful statement. I did want to, if you have a chance, allow me to come over to your home. I'd love to walk through and kind of go through a plan to assess some of your concerns. Cockroaches, they're not fun to deal with, and I feel like we could definitely take care of that issue in a timely manner and make sure that, you know, we want your kids to sleep, and you be rest assured. So if you don't mind, if you could please just leave your information. I will definitely follow up with you. I know Angela has intent to, but and for everybody in this room, myself, Robert Harris, the maintenance director, we would walk through every single home in here if that's what it is, what needs to be done. We're here to make things better. We're here to change things, and you know, we're only going to grow from this and become better from this. And so thank you, Christine. If you could please just leave your information and we'll follow up after this.
And you're so patiently standing there. So one more comment about from the HMO side. So education, that we've failed as a military, I think, when we transitioned to privatized housing. We used to own it. We used to walk into the homes. We knew what was going on. We weren't always on top of everything, similar challenges, but we lost that along the way. Just talking to my own command chief, he's never gotten the training on privatized housing, and he's a three-time command chief. So that's something our Air Force has recognized that we need to do better, and that's part of the education process is actually educating ourselves. So I want to say, Mr. Trevino, he is spot on, and we're here for you. I don't work for Hunt. I don't have anybody that works for Hunt. And they're my mission partner, just like a lot of the other mission partners on this space, but at the end of the day, I serve all of you. So just wanted to make that crystal clear for everyone.
Hello, my name is Ella English. I have a different relationship. Housing and maintenance have been wonderful for us. My complaint is the actual house, the aesthetics. I actually grew up in the projects, and these houses are much worse. And when we moved into our home, our bathroom needs to be redone. And they were telling us that we have to leave for 72 hours to have them refinish our bathroom. And so I was thinking, I said, what if someone couldn't afford to do this and they've already moved into this house? You know, how many people are going through this right now? So, you know, our family, we're going to take a hit. We're going to spend $12,000 and buy new appliances, refinish our floors, and do everything to make our home feel like a house. I mean, our house feel like a home, because it's just horrible to come home to. I mean, when you go out into the community and you see all these beautiful homes, new flooring, new everything, and then you come to your house and it's just like, what is the point? I mean, why go to war and come back and this is what you got to come home to? So, I mean, it's just something to think about.
Oh, I'm sorry, Audra.
Ella,
Go right ahead.
I wanted to thank you for standing up, and you have definitely made your home a house. You've done a lot of great things to it, and you take pride in your home, so I would like to thank you for that. But I do agree with you on the resurfacing. It's something that we come across very frequently, and we do. There is a strong smell. It is a polyurethane epoxy that they use. So whenever it's an occupied, it's going to take 24 hours. If you have a chance to leave or you're going on vacation, awesome. But that's definitely something that should have been addressed before you moved in. You shouldn't have moved into something that needed that work after you were already there. So I personally want to apologize for that. It should have been taken care of, and we'll definitely have more oversight on that in the future. So thank you.
Sergeant Hamilton?
Yes, sir. My name is Technical Sergeant Hamilton, first name Samuel. I've been on Hunt, or with Hunt, on this base now for 5 years and 3 months. It has not been the most joyous experience, but I do understand that you have some challenges. Rather than just complain, I'd like to offer a few questions and maybe some solutions to the things that you have going on. One of my things is the moment we moved in, we obviously had a busted water pipe in our bathroom, and it was mold from top to bottom. Being told that it was just okay and it'll be wiped down, we agreed to move in because that's all we had available. The reason behind us moving into a home that we knew that might be unsafe is we're here at EFMP. This is an EFMP haven. All of JBSA is. We don't have a lot of choices. A lot of us are single income parents with full-time nurses to our kids. So we took the home thinking that we've worked with Hunt before, and we've had actually great service from Hunt before at a different place. We've gone through the non-privatized to the privatized, and we've had our hiccups, but we've always been able to work them out. I want to put a few things into context for you. I moved in, and my shower was never cleaned. We ended up cleaning it. 3 years later, we finally convinced Hunt to come and clean our shower to get the mold out of it. Rather than cleaning the mold out of it, you took new grout from your contractor or your employee and put it over the grout. You took new silicone and put it over the old silicone. You repainted the walls after you told us to leave for a week. Now everything that was covered is coming back through. The General and the CE folks have seen it and can attest to it. My problem with all this isn't the only problem. I have windows that leak, every single window. I have to personally putty them to keep the water from coming in. But now there's so much rot under the window and so many cracks in my walls that it comes through the walls and underneath the windows and into my house. I have about $110 worth of towels in my closet so people who are there, or my own kids, when it rains, know to grab them instantly and put them on the window seals to prevent the water from coming in so we can stop some of the moisture and the mold in my home. I have energy efficiency problems, and I pay a lot in energy, but no one ever uses the electricity or the gas. And why is that? I don't have trees around my house like the center circle, and my home is not cooled by the shade. I am in the sun, and I have 3 feet of concrete around my house that constantly absorbs that radiation and then keeps my house warm 24/7. Same goes in the winter. It gets extremely cold because there's no insulation underneath the house. And I have holes in my floor that go straight to the mud. I had to move into my home and crawl into every closet and find all the holes and go buy my own tools and my own chicken wire and my own plaster, and I had to fix all these holes and patch them because Hunt wouldn't. All these complaints have fallen on deaf ears, and I don't understand why. We're here to give you what you enjoy so much, and that's freedom. Give us just a little bit back. Help us out. I even had the gall once to send you a bill for all the work I had done. I got, we'll just say, an impolite talking to, and that I wasn't allowed to do that legally. I thought that's funny because I work in the legal career field. I had every right. On top of all this, these are simple solutions. Replace the windows. Do the work right. Abate like you're supposed to. Use the money that I give you to fix the homes that we're in.
Thank you for your service, sir. I think we've at least exchanged some emails from time to time as you've suffered through some of the challenges that you faced since you moved into your home. As Audra stated, spot on in the very beginning of this town hall is we did fall short on a lot of things early on. I think the processes have improved, not to where we need to be, but where I can see the change on the horizon, and I can see that the team that I have on the ground here now, I can genuinely say is probably one of the most compassionate teams that I have. They do have a strong business acumen, but they also genuinely care, because the majority of the team members here are either service members' spouses or have direct family members in the military. So I do have you guys' contact information, Hamilton's, and I'll be in touch after this to kind of go through some of the challenges. I was intimately aware of one of the more recent issues with the flooring situation, but to your point, there were things that I didn't even know about. So I look forward to helping you get through this.
Good evening. I'm sorry. Good evening. My name is Alexia Hankins. My family and I have been here on Randolph for 1 year and 1 week. From the time that we moved in, we were very excited to come to San Antonio, but I was extremely disappointed when the day we moved into our home. I kind of, honestly, I was in complete shock. We have lived off base remotely for about 7 years, as my husband was a recruiter for the Air Force. And my first, I guess our first base was our first experience living on base, and it was actually a really good one. We lived at Luke Air Force Base back when privatization had originally came to fruition. We were there during the transition period, and it was under Balfour Beatty. So this is our first time dealing with Hunt, and I honestly, from that time to now coming back to a base, I completely regretted it. It's sad because this is noted as a historic base, but I think that what happens is the term gets used as a Band-Aid to fix problems that people, whether they're in officer housing or enlisted housing, it's used as a term or a Band-Aid to, I think, it's actually used loosely. I've had maintenance workers tell me, hey, this is the best I can do. You know, these houses are historic. This is all we can do. And I find that to be unsatisfactory. That's absolutely not the way to address it. To the customers, like the gentleman before said, are paying their money. And a lot of the times we don't have opportunities to look and seek for housing. So it's kind of like, well, we just take what we get and we'll hope for the best. And that's not fair. You know, we are paying the going rate, the market rate, what the military usually goes by that to figure out our housing allowance based on our rank. And the problem is, if I have to sit down with my husband and rearrange our finances and push to say, well, we're gonna have to rent off base, put ourselves in a financial bind or even crunch time to get a mortgage and pay probably less than we're paying here on Randolph to just have a better opportunity at living the way that a normal person should live. It's just basic things. We're not asking for, you know, fancy upgrades. An incident I can think back to when we first moved in, we walked in, the floors were disgusting. My kids didn't even want to walk without their shoes on the floor. We had roach problems. Before I even unpacked my boxes, I had to decide with my husband, do we unpack things? Like, I don't even know how, they're coming out of everywhere. I actually remember having to keep things, actually things are not kept in our main island because there was so many droppings from the cockroaches that I refused to put my cooking utensils in there. So now I had to create extra storage in our home because I don't want to, you know, contaminate the things that we use on a daily basis. The flooring issue was not handled in an appropriate way. I had to call and tell them that the floors, the tiles in our kitchen were flipping upward. The kids and I were tripping over them, and one of the maintenance employees decided he was going to use adhesive spray to seal them back down to the floor, which had extremely high fumes. I'm asthmatic, so is my son, and that was okay for him. I had to literally drive to Hunt's office for them to stop him, which he said he already completed it, and then they realized that the flooring was supposed to actually be done before we moved in, and it was never done. So we had to move all of our things to the living room and have an outside company come in to put down this very cheap linoleum. It's almost like a vinyl, really, which has already come up in many sections of our home. It wasn't done correctly, but what can I say? I was just happy to get the floors redone. I didn't even care at that point. I mean, it's just having the pest control come in 2 times a week, which I think is the max amount of times you can have them come in, just so we can minimize seeing all of the pests that we've been having since day one, since a year ago. Also, I'm sure other people have had the issue with mold. I just want to ask whoever's here, who has a problem with mold in their home? Raise your hand. That's alarming to me. And I'm pretty sure that there's other people who couldn't make it here tonight that would raise their hand as well. When you have conversations with other spouses about mold in your home and everyone's having the same issues, that is alarming to me. And for people to be told, oh, just deal with it, it's historic housing, that's unacceptable. And I think I can say this on behalf of many of the other families here. The only reason why we are even living through this horror is because we have a child who has special needs, and we will do anything, even live in the worst environment, so that they can go to one of the best schools here in San Antonio, which is Randolph ISD. I literally tell my kids every day when they complain or they get sick, even myself, I've had a horrible sinus infection numerous times. I've gone to BAMC for it. I'm currently I have battle scars of allergy shots so that I can at least try to tolerate living here with all the mold, which I have really bad allergies to. And the humidity is a problem. The first week we got here, I hadn't had an asthma attack in over 10 years, and I had 2 the first week. I've cried myself to sleep at night so I don't have an argument with my husband over why do we have to stay here. It's not fair. We pay our money, enlisted or officers. We should never have to pay all of this money out to be treated, like others have said, less than people who are occupying Section 8. And sadly, most of us would probably qualify on lower ranks, and it would probably be better for us to go on that route. So it's not right. I think I even remember a time where I asked about trying to help, like, maybe if I help with some ideas, this will make living here better. Do you think we could get some fans put throughout the unit so that might help with the humidity levels? They ended up coming back and telling me, at first they said, yeah, absolutely. They came back and said, I'm sorry, ma'am, we can only give you one, so you need to choose where you want it. I was told by a maintenance worker this is the first month we were here, I said, what's with all the puddles every time it rains on the windowsills? Oh, ma'am, all you need to do is just get towels. You kind of just soak it up, and that should take care of it. I literally spoke to a friend who's stationed at Fort Jackson in South Carolina, and she's like, are you serious? I said, that's how they're handling it. I asked about dehumidifiers, and I was told that, oh, we used to supply them, but we no longer do it because I thought it was kind of a slap in the face, whether it's true or not, but service members and their families were not returning them or they were stealing them, so that's why we don't supply them anymore. I think that is absurd because it doesn't take anyone to have a business degree to know it's a simple way to rectify that. You have a system where you give a number to each unit, you have someone sign a contract, much like we signed one to have a lease here, and you make sure you put a deposit down. If you can do that to rent the community center, why can't you do that for dehumidifiers? It costs us $179. We would like to get probably 5 or 6 just to live okay in our house, but we can only afford 1 because we have 4 children and my husband's in E6. And I currently make the sacrifice to stay home to be available to my children and to make sure I have time to clean this house on a daily basis and fight with mold. So even if I wanted a job, I couldn't do it. because there's too many things to take care of on the home front in our house just so that we can stay healthy. So, I mean, I could probably go on and I could probably speak on behalf, sadly, of the things that I'm experiencing in our home. I'm sure a lot of people are going through it, and they may have had similar instances where it's been handled to me in a poor way. And, you know, I just really want to know, like, as you take our money every month and knowing that we are not able to withhold it based on the current contract that the military has made to privatize, I just want to know, would any of your upper management team like to come and live here in Randolph? Not the people who, like Audra, who is a service member's spouse, because I know my husband has spoke to her and she's always been very kind and very helpful. But something I noticed, and I don't know if anyone else will be able to bring it up or concur with me, but we all know that the people who, it was said earlier, who work here, they're awesome. They're doing their best. But a lot of this is not coming from them. Everything goes up, just like in the military, chain of command. There are people way on the top that are pushing the people way at the bottom to be the face of their mishaps, and it's not right. Responsibility needs to be taken for it. It should not be left in their laps. They're making the little bucks while the people who make the big bucks get to say what happens and they never get to face it. I'm pretty sure you have people, Miss Angela, who are above you who told you to come here and you need to say the right things because you have to keep your job. I know what goes on. I've worked in corporate America before. I know how it works. It's not right. The military set this up. I've done extensive research. Anyone can go and look up how the privatization started. If you took the time to listen to the Senate hearings, it's very clear. There was a $50 billion contract that was made with these private companies with the understanding that the military could not handle the undertaking anymore. And they trusted that this contract would be upheld. And honestly, there's been a huge breach. And across the nation, I just spoke with someone on Instagram who's a fellow military spouse way across the country. And we sat back and forth through just private chat talking about the things that we're experiencing. That's not okay. Something has to be done. Our voices are being heard, but things need to happen. Thank you.
I appreciate your comments. I think a large portion of it is accurate. I used to work on the Army side in privatized housing for the Army, and I lived in historic homes as well, and I know that can be an excuse that gets used, and I apologize for that. Part of the struggle that we find as HMC corporate, if you will, is that the project overall is underfunded, just strictly using BAH funds, and that's our only source of income other than some minor performance incentive fees. But the BAH, if we take it out and we extrapolate it over the course of the 50-year contract, we are underfunded. Just taking BAH and just taking the rents that we receive from you, we are underfunded as a whole with AETC. So I oversee AETC in its entirety. So I don't just oversee Randolph, I oversee 6 other installations. AETC as a group portfolio is underfunded for the long term by almost 37%. So that means at the end of the project, we have 37% of things that we can't even afford to do. Right, so that being said, what we're doing is we have other avenues that we can evaluate, and we've actually done it this year in the budget. We've added line items for duct cleaning to make sure that the air that you breathe is healthier. We've added deferred maintenance line items in our budget, which is below the line, that we can spend to do some foundation repairs, do some exterior painting, do some window repairs, do some of the things that everybody here has mentioned so far. but it is not an overnight process. So we've worked very hard this past year to do a pretty good budget to be fair for 2019. That's something that honestly, like as we work through that and we become aware. I can't answer that question. No, I was just doing it for situational awareness so that there was an understanding of, and I agree, but the government is also has had some impact on that. BAH rates have gone down, and that impacts our overall ability to, and it just went up. Right.
Pay almost $1,800 in BAH a month. If you pay that off base, you can get way more of a house with way nicer stuff. I mean, granite countertops, nice stainless steel appliances, everything. Like, yeah, 100%. And we don't see an itemized breakdown for that at all. So we have no idea. How are you under budget if we're paying almost $500 more than what we can get off base for more housing, nicer appliances, all that stuff?
So as we go through the budget process every year, we actually get together. We as in Audra, myself, this is a grouped project, so your site is in with Maxwell, Goodfellow, Laughlin, Vance, and Columbus. So I get my 6 community directors, sometimes maintenance directors. We sit down, we take a full week, we talk about the needs of all of the portfolio. We then discuss with asset management kind of what the long-term sustainment needs of the project are. We also loop in ownership. We actually, as corporate, spend about 30 to 60 days working through what our budget, at least for this project, looks like. At this time, I don't believe we do. So, but what we do is, I know. So wait.
All right,
can we? So wait. Just 1 second. I want to make sure we keep decorum so I can get the information of who each of you are, so I can continue the follow-up. So if we're going to kind of start yelling out from the audience, it's going to start getting chaotic. I mean, I don't know.
All right, so one thing that we'll do is, so what we will commit to, so that's part of the forum. So going back to what General Linderman had indicated earlier, bringing in your concerns. So although if right now the Hunt situation is they cannot address certain things, we are taking that back.
So it's not addressed, you stop paying rent.
No, ma'am. No. No, ma'am. All I'm saying, ma'am, all I'm saying is, right. Right, so what I'm, yes, ma'am, I agree with you 100%. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take that back. So where we can help you as your advocate is we can take that back. Right, I understand, ma'am. So, but what you do have is you do have the senior leaders here where we are making the commitment and we are telling you. That's why the Secretary of the Air Force and the Chief of Staff of the Air Force has said, we are concerned. Because of the voices that have been loud and clear, we have a problem. Yes, ma'am. So, but that's good though. But that's really good. So that's what we're, right. So again, we're going to take that back so we can address it. But what I want to be able to do is give everybody an opportunity to voice their concerns, because that's the intent of this evening's forum. So just real quick, I want to just briefly touch on the historical issue that keeps coming up. We're going to work with Hunt because too many times when we did the site visits, we hear, well, it's historical, we can't touch certain things. So we're going to take that back as an action because the historical piece, that is within my job jar. I can go and work. So we do have federal and state laws that say we have to do certain aspects with historical houses or historical facilities. But what it doesn't say is we're going to ignore life safety health issues. We're going to take that back as an action, and we're going to work with the State Historic Preservation Office and the ACHP at the federal level to resolve those issues. It should not be an excuse when it comes to saying I can't replace your HVAC is not historical. Okay, it's just not. So that's not an excuse that anybody should use. Okay? Right, so that's incumbent upon us, and if it means that if Hunt is anticipating a higher cost because they have to make certain things historical, we can help fix that. We can help argue from the historical piece to make sure that it doesn't become an issue. So a little bit of clarification. The duplex units, the historical is only on the outside. The circle housing is the interior and exterior. So we have a programmatic agreement with the State Historic Preservation Office. So again, it's the architecture that becomes historical on the duplexes. So again, there's a lot of confusion out there. It's our job, it's the Air Force's responsibility to put that no kidding answer when it comes to historical. So that's our commitment working with Hunt to make that a solution to where that shouldn't be an excuse, and we'll find a way to get past it. That's one thing that we'll have to go back and take up. I really don't have an answer for you right now. I'm just being honest. I just don't. But it's something that we are taking up as an issue, and it will be.
And if I could jump in, because that's one of the concerns, one of the common concerns that I've heard from the families that we've met with is third-party testing. Someone to come in to test the air quality, the mold, and we're working with AFCEC to see how do we do that? How do we work through our contract and make sure that we have someone that's doing a fair assessment that you trust? So that we have that for action. The other thing I wanted to mention is if your family has documented, or it doesn't matter, documented, undocumented, you have health concerns about your family, we would also like to get your name. We're also collecting a list of folks, and if Ed over here in the red shirt, if you could come over and see him at the end and give him your name, because there are some things that we're trying to work through in terms of some folks want to move off base. How do we do that if they're that concerned about their health, or they have issues that you've described? I'm so sorry. I know. And you're not. We definitely want to get your name, okay? Another concern that some of you have is the schools. And if you move off base, would you still get to come back to Randolph? And I don't know if Jimmy's here. He may or may not be here. He contacted me from Randolph Public Schools, and we have a wonderful superintendent like you described earlier. So thank you for your compliments of our school districts. And he's willing to make exceptions for our families that have health concerns. So that's good news. That's something to smile about. Yeah.
Is it okay if I ask my question?
Yes, ma'am. You've been so patient.
Just because I've witnessed it myself, the improper cleaning up of the mold, because unfortunately I lived through a couple floods in a historic old farmhouse, so I got to learn a lot about how to handle mold. It seems like maintenance some of them are great, but they're misinformed on how they're handling cleaning things, how they're handling the lead paint, getting painted over and stuff. Those aren't being done properly. I've had our sewer line in our backyard back up several times to where there was, sewer water where my kids are playing, and nothing was done except for a phone call to SAWS, and left for me to clean up that fun mess. And I'm trying to think what else. Oh, I also would like to know, we've taken upon ourselves to do our own lead screening for our kids, if those will be taken into consideration if the levels come back high, because we've had asthma, ADHD diagnosis, which are linked to lead, high levels of lead. So I was just wondering if you guys would be taking those results into consideration also, if it's from a medical laboratory, not like this mold testing where, you go to Lowe's and get a kit or anything like that.
Is that question for us or?
I just want to know, is there something that's going to be done? If you see a bunch of kids coming back with high levels of lead, and sorry, Audra, but we know it's not being handled appropriately when it's being fixed, the chips, the paints, the peeling. Obviously, it's coming from the house. I used to work in lab. I had to do lead screenings on kids all the time. It's not a hard process. I think it'd really be great if you guys got together with the clinic and offered it. And if anything, it comes back normal, and then we know, hey, these kids are healthy. They're not being exposed to this high level of lead that everyone seems to think they are. The mold is a whole other issue. I grew up in an old house. I get that moisture builds up, but that's why you put fans in. That's why you do maintenance. My dad's a carpenter, you just have to stay on top of those kind of things. And obviously, for a long time, they weren't, and now you guys are stuck playing catch up. Another thing, I've lived on a previous base where there was residents that were appointed the advocates, like mayors and stuff. That would be a good tool here. People are feeling alone and like they're not being heard. You need to appoint somebody to be their independent voice where they don't have to worry, is my first shirt gonna have to get involved? Am I gonna get a letter saying I can't send my housing a bill, or stuff like that, where you're not feeling retaliated? Because personally, I lived here 2 years. I gave up putting in maintenance requests and stuff, just do it myself pretty much most of the time. And I actually got written up, or whatever you want to call it, a notice about the outside of my house. So I'm already like, kind of like, are they retaliating against us already? I've never had an issue. I just try to suck it up and do what we can and stuff, but I feel like housing is going to retaliate. It's going to be, unless it was because all the higher ups are starting to come on base and look around what's going on, and that's why you're sending out notices all of a sudden. But I've been here over 2 years. I keep my house pretty decent for poor crazy children, you know, but it was bikes and lawn chairs. Like, I don't know what you're expecting of people, but people do ride bikes and sit in lawn chairs in their backyard. We're not going to put it all away every day. Yeah.
I'll address one of your points, and I'll hand over to Audra. But the lead or any lead water paint-based testing, we went through this at Fort Sam, where there was a test that came back and had higher levels, and so we had a similar town hall, and if I remember correctly, Sam, we offered that testing. We worked with our medical group in the medical clinic, so we will do the same. If there's concerns and you just want to, cross the board, test your children right now, just to at least get a baseline, then we can do that.
Okay. What about training for, like, what are you offering your employees for training?
Okay, so I wanted to address a couple of things. So when the whole lead-based paint situational awareness came out with the articles, we actually held a town hall here, and CE was involved, Colonel Carter's team was involved, and we talked about lead-based paint. And every home here has lead-based paint. It was built pre-1978, obviously, right? So some things that we implemented since, and really before all of that came out, but we had a little bit more oversight on, was following the EPA RRP guidelines. So what that is basically any of our contractors that do paint repairs, and even Sergio, our in-house painter, is RRP certified, which means they are qualified and trained to repair or do any kind of anything to painting, whether it's chipping, flaking, basically any repair with lead-based paint, they're qualified.
So you have one person that's certified?
We have one in-house painter who is certified. However, all of our contractors that do painting are RRP certified, and we keep all of that information on file. We have all of their certificates. So a lot of our contractors that a lot of people think they're painters for Hunt and they work with us, but no, they're actually contractors. So you may have seen a couple people in and out, but even Martin, our subcontractor he's broad range of everything, he and his son are both RRP certified. So that was a big focus that we took, and we pushed out a lot of communication on that, and through one calls, if you see any chipping, flaking. Another caveat to that is anytime there's an environmental call, lead-based paint, mold, anything like that, Robert Harris will respond to all of those. That is considered an emergency work order, and there is 100% oversight on that. We take that seriously.
I've experienced it where he's not.
1 hour response time on mold. How many of you had called in on mold and received a 1 hour response? But how many dealing with mold?
I received a response that it was not mold, but my pop allowed to the home inspector sent a mailing kit and it came back positive.
I think it's that they're saying black mold isn't dangerous, and that's not accurate.
Okay, so something new that we are rolling out relatively soon. It hasn't been anything we've communicated yet, but each portfolio, we do have an RMD, so there is an equivalent to me that's strictly dedicated to maintenance. Each of the environmental concerns that we become made aware of, and admittedly, we may not know all of them, and that's a system we're trying to fix. But each of the environmental concerns that are brought to our attention get assigned to myself, the RMD, and an environmental specialist we have on staff. So we actually have NADA certified regional maintenance directors. We also have people that are fully certified and well trained on environmental safety, air quality, you name it, they do it. What we're doing now is we're actually assigning an environmental person, like a Nick, to each portfolio. So what you'll have is a direct person that's in charge, instead of kind of having that corporate sort of fairly recent.
Is this just like you're watching a PowerPoint and learning about it? Because I've seen those training videos. Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable going in someone else's home and saying, oh, I know all about this after
Right.
watching a 40-slide PowerPoint on it. Like,
So-
how extensive is it?
Every year we do a leadership conference. Our maintenance directors receive some training on that, specifically this year. Additionally, we do require ongoing either certifications if they're RRP or mandatory, like, sort of refresher training that we offer as a company on that stuff. So like I said, we are in the process of assigning environmental regional directors, if you will, to each portfolio. So you'll have not just the team on the ground, but you'll have myself, a regional maintenance director, and a regional environmental person that will help work through some of these challenges. Especially at AETC, I mean, we have two very historic bases that take a lot of the environmental resources that we have as an organization. So we've kind of talked and decided that it really would behoove the portfolio to just have that direct line and chain of command to make sure that the environmental issues are addressed appropriately.
And I don't mean to interject, but we signed 50 statements when we moved in saying that the problems are there, so I don't understand exactly what you're saying, because we already know that there's mold and lead and all
Mold,
of
lead,
that.
asbestos
So-
waivers.
I'm sorry, what?
Mold, lead, and asbestos waivers?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't
What's-
understand what that committee is gonna do when we already know that the problem is there. Like, all the houses are there, all the problems are there, we
Right.
know they're there, so it just sounds
Right.
like more resources going to something that we already know.
So the ultimate goal, and I think everybody has said this in varying fashions this evening so far, is accountability, right? I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is to make sure that the site team is doing what they say they're going to do. And as much as I appreciate Audra and Robert on the ground here, they're only a handful of people dealing with a large-scale project. So in addition to the additional resources that we're able to give them with our knowledge, I mean, you know, years of experience doing this as well as the environmental, we'll be able to provide them the support they need to be more attentive to these and have educated responses. And if there's no response, or there's no action, or items are not taken care of in a timely manner, then you as residents have resources that we'll be able to share with you, contact information, chains of command on HMC's side, to be able to say, hey, listen, I talked to Audra, I talked to Robert, nothing's being done, I don't know what's happening. Angela help, Mike help, Nick help, and kind of work through that accountability chain.
The problem is, though, you just said that we're underfunded and you're taking more money, and that's how we're all looking at it. I hear the people talking behind me. You're talking director-level positions, which are hundreds of thousands of dollars per portfolio, and you're already so underfunded that you cannot get a lot of these issues addressed.
So-
And I've been more fortunate. I've gotten so many of my issues addressed here, whereas a lot of people haven't. And more money is being taken away, and you've already said that. And where's the more money going to come to pay the few people to hold accountable when we're holding you accountable now?
Right. So some of the corporate level positions are directly impacted by the budget already. Then they've already been allocated to the portfolio in a smaller capacity. So that will shift some of that, but it's not. Trust me, it is not hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's really not. It is a small ripple in a large fund, especially with you guys being a grouped project of 6 bases. The direct impact to Randolph itself will be negligible at best.
All right, so if we can, let's just go to the next person, because I know you've been patiently waiting for.
I just wanted to know what the
Oh, I'm sorry.
turnaround time for the lead thing, if you think you can
Okay.
implement the testing, like how would you notify everybody? What timeline are you looking at?
As soon as possible. I mean, tonight. I'll contact the medical group commander.
Okay.
We'll get something out likely through our partners here, send something through your email saying this is how to do it, this is how to sign up. At Fort Sam, they went to the front of the line because it was a concern at that time. So Sam, you're much more familiar with how the process was executed.
Yes, ma'am. So what we did is we coordinated we had a representative. We actually had a pediatrician that attended our town hall, and she provided some information. We had a pediatrician who provided information, and what she did was provided instructions on what they would need to do when they went to SAMC to seek the test. And so we'll do the same thing. We'll coordinate. I'll coordinate with Colonel Carter, the EA here, and then I'll provide that information and link them up so we can do the same thing. And so more to follow on that. I don't want to say start showing up and they'll start testing you, but in essence, that's through our coordination. That's what they put out, is that go ahead and show up and let them know what you're there for, and they can go ahead and do the testing there.
Okay.
Does that help?
Thank you. That makes me very happy.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, please.
Yes, I'm going to be really quick because we have to take our son home, but this meeting was about concerns that we have that aren't being addressed, and I'm going to run through a really quick list that I have. One of my main concerns, like other people here, is roaches. My husband has put down stuff. We've had people from the office come and bait for the roaches. We've had them spray outside of the house, and we'll have a long period of time where we don't see anything, but we've also had moments where we were in bed in the middle of the night and one fell out of the vent onto us, where we were bathing our children and one fell out onto the toilet while we were doing that. The other night, one fell out of the closet where the AC unit is in our living room, and then just yesterday or the day before, one fell along with water, came through one of the lights in our kitchen. Aside from roaches, we've had things with leaks. Our floor, our entire second floor is rotted out. We use a baby gate at the top of the stairs, and we've had to call maintenance out to come. They've nailed the railing back down because the baby gate is pushing the rail over because the floor is so rotted out. We actually had to change which room we decided to put our son in for his safety because the dresser drawer wouldn't stay closed no matter where we put it in the room because the house is leaning that much. And when we tried to mount things to the wall, the drywall is too thin, so it wouldn't stay. We've had other issues with mold and leaks like our countertops. I heard the other woman who left with children up here earlier say that she was at least advised that if they were going to resurface her countertops that they should have been out of the house for 24 hours. We were told about 6. So the fumes were so strong when they resurfaced our countertops that they actually ruined a sealed bag of cookies that was sitting on top of the countertops because for a week they were that strong that we could barely breathe in the house. Audra was actually there. She's the one who told me that if I wanted the counters replaced, which is what should have happened before we moved in because there's that much mold underneath them, that we would have to be out of the house for 24 hours. There's so much leakage into the countertops that actually underneath had to be replaced because when one of the maintenance men came to fix the leak in the sink, his hand went through the bottom of the counter. So he had to then replace everything that was underneath just the sink. But the rest of the cabinets, the countertop, everything is still there. The mold is just sitting in it. Audra was also in our house when we told both her and Robert, the maintenance director, that there was a leak in the AC coming through the ceiling. There was an emergency work order done for it. My husband showed them where it was, and when he touched the ceiling, it was so wet that his hand went through. So they said they'd have someone come right out and fix it. And instead what they did was they just patched the hole and painted over top of it. So a couple weeks ago, I had the maintenance director and the manager show up at my house because I called in about this still going on, and they told me to my face that they weren't going to do anything about it. And when I told them that there's probably mold in there because of the leakage, they're like, oh, it's just condensation. So I don't know if they don't think that I don't know what condensation is, or maybe they don't know what condensation is. And it happened before we lived there also because you can see that there's a cutout in the ceiling where something had to be patched over. And they told me, oh, well, it's not happening right now and you have the AC on, so it should be fine. Air ducts aren't self-healing, so someone needs to fix it. Who knows what we're breathing in? And the reason that this was brought up to them in the first place 2 weeks ago is because when we first moved in, we asked for it to have the ducts cleaned. And when the ducts were cleaned, the people who were there told me that they couldn't do a proper cleaning because everything was so unstable that they couldn't actually connect their machines to it. And so they just scrubbed off the vents and vacuumed a little bit and didn't really do much else. So about a month and a half ago, the maintenance people called and had someone else come to clean out the ducts, and they suspiciously told me that I had to leave my house. So the interesting thing about that is now that the ducts have been cleaned, because I had to leave my house for about 6 hours, now we have stuff flying out of our vents. Also, they didn't reseal the vents properly when they put them back on, so I had nails in my children's toys that I had to call the rental office about, and they came and they just resealed things and they sprayed it, but the ducts haven't been cleaned. I can see the stuff that's in there still. So someone was lied to. Also, I was lied to because when I called to ask why that hadn't been fixed and how everything had gone, that very same day after I got home, after they told me that I had to leave, they told me that the AC leak had been fixed as well as the ducts being cleaned. But I talked to the manager of the company that was in the house. He said they were just there to clean the ducts, not to fix the leak. And so then when I talked to both the maintenance director and the manager after that, they told me that the all-service team that handles the ductwork didn't put anything about the leaks in their report when they came to assess our house. And again, they told me to my face that they weren't going to do anything about it. Yeah, there's no report.
So thank you, Mrs. Warner. Everything you said is accurate. I know that I've been through your house. We walked through, we looked at some things, and actually, Mrs. Alexander brought it to our attention that when the ducts were cleaned, nails, we did a walkthrough after her ducts were cleaned and nails were falling out. They weren't installed properly, and that's something that we have communicated back with our duct cleaning company and plan to have a little bit more oversight on that whole process. So that was something recently that came up that we were not aware of before, and again, we should have been doing a quality check on that and going back after it was completed. I would like to kind of talk to you, maybe I can follow up with you tomorrow and just stop by and run through there. I know All Service, so we have two different companies, All Service and Two Cool Guys, which are both duct cleaning certified. All Service can also do duct repairs, and they do a lot of our HVAC installations. I know both of them have been to the house, but I don't have the information in front of me, so I would just like to sit down with you and just kind of go through and review that and see your concerns and walk through that and see what we can get addressed and make sure it is addressed going forward.
Okay.
And again, just make sure that before you leave, you provide information to the team in the back, because I'll be following up and making sure that we don't have things falling through the cracks. So I know, if you have to leave, I understand that. I was actually watching her, making sure she was getting down your information, but I'd really like to have a consolidated list of everyone who spoke tonight to make sure that I can follow up and make sure that we're doing what we say we're going to do.
So, ma'am, I apologize.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, right. So, sir, please.
All right. My name's Dave. If the panel wants, I'll give my full name and everything. There's a reason I'm not doing it. I'll tell you right now, open forum, so I'm kind of taking a different route on this. I'm not trying to offend one, and I hope I don't, but like I said, I'm taking a different route. I've been through, this is my third base where I've been in privatized. I've lived in housing my whole Air Force career, going on 20 years now. My first two bases, I went from military to privatized. My first base, we ended up moving into 5 different houses so they could tear down, build up, and going through all their zones and everything. So it's like a PCS every 2 years, but going to the same base, no new scenery. So, we went through all that. Then our second base we got to is still under military control. Went through the privatization again. Luckily we didn't have to move. Now, the plus with those two bases, they were tearing down houses, building brand new. So they didn't have the issues of a 90-year-old home, historical, this and that. So if issues came up, they were really true issues. And not that the ones here aren't true issues, but a lot that aren't caused by what happened. But with going through that, what I've noticed, privatized maintenance has been far better than any military maintenance I have gotten anywhere. I can say that here, I can say that the other 2 bases that I transitioned from military to privatized. Far better care, quality, timeliness, everything going through the privatized than the military. Like I said, though, they didn't have the issues here. I do think a lot of times they do use the age of the homes and everything as a crutch, that, hey, it is an old home. It is. We got to deal with it. I get it. There's certain things you can do, you can't do. The other things I saw at the second base is, yes, they had some homes they did keep, but part of their privatization was once that resident moved out, they went in and did almost a $40,000 upgrade to those homes with new countertops. Everyone got a microwave and a hood above their range. Every house was the same. They got new floorings. They got new countertops. That was all part of their privatization. I was under the impression that's what privatization was, to try to make everything the same and offer the quality. And I don't know if maybe that's in the contract. I get things take time. But my biggest concern is we all know there's issues both on the military side and on the housing side. You know, I can't change what happened in the past, and none of you can change what happened in the past. I guess my biggest question is, in the future, how long have we been privatized now? Probably 10, 15 years. We're now getting to the senior leader's attention. It's getting to the secretary's attention, okay? To me, that's a problem that we let it get that far to get to their attention. What's going to happen another 10, 15 years down the road? Are we going to be having more town halls like this? Or is a follow-up going to be there to ensure that things are still being met? Or do we hurry and fix the problem and then let it ride out until we start running into these problems? And I think that's my biggest concern through all this. We're all spending a lot of time, a lot of efforts, from the housing side to the military side. We have senior leaders making a stop at everyone's home, which I guarantee you they're busy enough not to have to do that. But it's that much of a priority. I feel like it wasn't that much of a priority 10, 15 years ago when we could have eliminated a lot of this. And I hope that it doesn't get to that another 10, 15 years down the road, that we're in this same boat, all in this same forum. Do I agree we need to maybe look at the medical if we're having that many issues? You know, we can find out later who's responsible for that. Are the people not getting the care they need? And I hope, ma'am, we are digging into that and getting that, because that should be the top priority, and making sure that's covered. It can play out later who's going to be responsible for the care. You know, like I said, I don't care what happened in the past. I can't change it. None of us can change it. What are we doing in the future? And I think that will ease a lot of our minds. What is our plan ahead? Where is our future? Like I said, I'm happy with maintenance, all 3 privatizations I've been with. It has been amazing, great, wonderful, and I hope that continues. I'm just, like I said, worried about the future. I have a son that's going to enlist in the Air Force. What's his future going to be like in the housing? Or is he going to be dealing with this, sitting in these same town halls with senior leaders, voicing his concerns when I did the same thing 15 years ago? That's not why we're taking time out to do this. We're taking the time out to fix the problem. Is it going to get fixed? Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you so much. I appreciate your comments and compliments to our privatized maintenance. That means a lot. I know that, because they do put their heart and soul. I know they're underpaid and not enough of them to go around. To the accountability in the future, I owe that to you. As the commander here, I owe that. I don't know the answer. I will tell you that flat out. I don't know the answer right now. We're working through that right now. I know the chief of staff, like you said, this chief of staff, this secretary's laser focused on it. Will the next ones be? I imagine they will be, because this is a multi-year contract, 50 years or something along those lines. It's a long time, so we have to fix it. We owe that to you. I can't tell you how it's going to play out, but I hear you, and that's something that I owe you. Thanks.
And please.
I want to know who's going to hold Hunt accountable for having the mold testing done. I know that you touched base earlier that you might be possibly looking at a third party, but is it going to be Garrison? Is it going to be CE? Is it going to be the Secretary of the Air Force, Chief of Staff? Who is going to hold these people accountable? Because I feel like the second that they do a mold testing, they're going to send it to a lab that they've probably paid off to bogus I'm just speculating. But anyways, I feel like we should choose who we want to test for mold testing in our own home before they do HVAC system cleaning. Another question I had was about the electric bills. Why is it that there's people on this base that have the same exact house that get significant credits every month, and then there's the ones that are getting a significant bill every month, time and time again. For us, especially, our floor has dropped from the ceiling, or our floor dropped from the wall, and they come and put expandofoam in there to seal it. We've touched the ground with metal hangers. You saw the electric panel box. They had to redo our electricity, our panel box, and we have wires sticking out at the bottom with children. And that is acceptable to Hunt. So I want to know who's going to hold them accountable from here moving forward.
We also were sitting down one night watching, actually one day in the afternoon on the weekend watching TV, and I looked at my wife and we're like, what the hell is that? It was light coming through the floor. Yep. We had cracks in our house. So the bottom line is, when it comes to energy efficiency, those are the kind of things you're going to drive those bills. So where's that money going, and why are we paying electricity again?
One other question. So we moved Oconus, so we could only bring what fit in a suitcase. We're Army. It was a 6 to 12 month wait at Fort Sam, so we came to Randolph. There was a house available. We were very happy about it. But then to come to find out that the previous tenants had mold halfway up the walls. And so you make us sign addendums at our lease, but my God, you never told us about the mold. Who's going to hold them accountable? That's what I want to know.
Thank you so much. And thank you for letting us come talk to you yesterday. We really appreciate it and getting eyes on your house. The accountability piece, that's me. You know, I will, as long as I'm in the seat, I know I'm accountable. And that's my job, is to hold our partners accountable. We're working with our leadership at the Air Force Civil Engineering Center, because this is across the portfolios. Is we need to understand what our responsibilities are, and I think Dave mentioned it, talking about, you know, in the past we used to do better walkthroughs. We had more command involvement, and this is a wake-up call. This is a wake-up call for the Air Force. It's a wake-up call for our wings, and that's my responsibility. The devil's in the details, though. So I owe you that. The other thing I wanted to mention or talk to you about was the third-party testing. That came up quite a bit when we walked through the homes, because folks, they are concerned about who's accountable for the testing and who's paying that bill, or, you know, are they going to change the results because of who they're reporting to? And again, we're working with our Civil Engineering Center to look for a means that we can have a third party. I don't have an answer right now, though. I talked to Mr. Moriarty tonight, actually, or yesterday before the last town hall, but he said that's something that they're trying to work through as well. So I know I owe you that answer. I do want to turn it back over to Audra. So I think there were a couple energy efficiency questions, and that was another common theme. Double window panes, you know, they mentioned the cracks and things like that. So if you want to speak to any of those.
Okay, so with Manol, there's a couple different things going on there. A lot of people get the perception that Hunt decided to go with Manol, and that Hunt is over the electric usage part of that. I do want to reiterate that was an Air Force initiative. So as far as prior, it was based off of a 5-year history. They would take a trend. And it wasn't until recently, it's been since 2016 that Manol changed that, again, directed from the Air Force. And they did it off of a baseline average. So they took that and they said, okay, you know, the 5-year history isn't really working out. You know, some years it snows, some years it's super hot during the winter, and vice versa for the summer, same thing. And we've actually experienced that here in San Antonio. We had snow for the first time since, 1978. So it wasn't very accurate data. So whenever they switched over to the system, they said we are going to group similar like homes in a group, and it has to be a group bigger than 10 for it to be an accurate grouping, right? This is constantly being audited, so as of, and this is audited not through Hunt, but also through the HMO side and through their utility team and Ben Martinez on the Air Force side, CE side. And basically how it is so for the circle housing, all of the two-story houses are in one group. And the baseline average, there are things, we'll come in and do an energy audit and we'll find that 99% of the electric usage that is high, and by high I mean $80 or over for 1 month billing cycle, is due to the HVAC system. And so we evaluate that, we take care of it, we address it. But we've also found it's really kind of an education piece as well, because people will get a statement and they'll be like, oh my goodness, I owe $90 this month. And we're like, okay, well, let's sit down and look at it. And it's actually over the last 5 months, you've now accrued this $90 bill, and there may be a few late fees in there. So we're like, hey, we'll remove the late fees, and we run through the process. So I think kind of just getting to know the bill too, and not saying that there's not issues, because we have found issues. But part of that baseline average is every home out here is inefficient. As far as the two-story circle homes, there is double pane windows in those homes, but they do take into account that we don't have energy efficient appliances. All of these homes have cracks in some form or fashion. So that average is an average of the usage within the group, and the top 10% and the bottom low 10% are taken out of that. So it's just an average of that. I'll get to your question in just 1 second. So from there, we actually get kind of essentially like a pre-bill, and they'll send us the pre-bill. We review the top 20 users, and we're like, hey, is there something going on here? And that's kind of the process that we evaluate. Same on the HMO side when they evaluate and look at it. But the biggest thing too is, if you feel like you're having an issue with your bill, communicate that to us so that we can come out. And if you don't feel like you're getting the service from our maintenance team, like, hey, they came out and did an energy audit, but I'm really not sure because our bill's still showing. And we've even worked with residents and done like, hey, we're gonna do this fix and see if it helps, but let's monitor it over the next 90 days and kind of see how your usage is flexing out. So there's a lot of different things that we can put into place and talk about and see what's going on, and walk through your home and evaluate all of those things to kind of come to a resolution as to why you're having essentially a high energy bill.
Let me just add one thing as far as the grouping goes, because I've received, this is not my first rodeo doing town halls, so I have received some questions on how did the groupings come into play, and how did you decide what homes went together? And that was a collaborative effort. I personally worked very closely with AFCEC Civil Engineering to determine what those like type, we call them like type groups were. Diane was probably the most vicious advocate for that pairing of what those like type homes were. I mean, she was relentless in making sure that we got those like type groups done appropriately. So it wasn't just Hunt kind of sitting there and going, oh, well, these 4 houses should be together, or these 10 or these 20 or these 40. It was a collaborative effort with AFCAC, with the HMO team, and we have gotten it wrong. We have run into instances since this program's been in place a little over 2.5 years. We found, you know what, that house doesn't make any sense to be in that group, and we've made adjustments accordingly. We've worked with Manol. We've also found that a lot of the usage is what we call vampire usage. So again, this is not meant to be an education piece or me standing up here telling you how to live your lives, but ideally, unplug your stuff. Flip your power strip. You'd be surprised. I had to educate, like I said, I have a 24-year-old who's in the service now, and I had to give him an education on how to make sure that he wasn't being impacted by vampire energy by leaving his Xbox plugged in, and even if it's plugged in, it's still pulling power. So that's also part of that. But yes. So what I'd like to have happen is, right. So what I'd like to have happen is I have a great relationship with Manol. I work readily with them to adjust similar situations that I've seen in other installations. Please, 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 I can't stress this enough, get with the team in the back, leave your contact information and a brief summary of kind of what's going on. And I will work with not just the local team, but my resources that I have available at the corporate level to kind of get to the bottom of things. And sometimes I might not be able to give you the answer you want, but anybody that's in this room that's worked with me knows that I'm extremely transparent to the point where I can be a little too blunt sometimes. Sorry, Diane. But we work through it, and I will always give you the answer that is accurate and straightforward. And if we can make it better for you, that's my goal. If we can't, then let's figure out what the next steps are after that.
Thank you. Ms. Wolf, please.
Hi, how are you? First of all, thank you. You're one of the first people that's ever listened to us and truly heard us as people and as spouses, not just the other half, not the invisible half. So I appreciate you. I'm sure everybody else that you've spoken to would say the same thing. I started an advocacy group, and that can be out in the open, that can be private. I really don't care. If you need something, please join that. We've worked through a lot of problems in the last 2 weeks in that group. A lot of things came to the attention of each other, things that we weren't allowed to say openly before in other forums that should have been true forums, but there's conflict of interest. So we weren't allowed to say these things. So thank you for listening about the things that came up during those. I actually have some energy efficiency issues for you to look at, like we discussed. I did get a spreadsheet ready for you. My home is on there, and there is literally red all the time. I always have billing. The reason why I have billing is probably because my air conditioning was sopping wet from a leak from the second-story toilet that I addressed multiple times, and I was told multiple times that there was nothing wrong with my toilet. They didn't see a current leak. Okay, then explain the crystallization on the back of my toilet that is holding that leak in, and why I can step on it and feel the water. There is a current leak. It does need to be dealt with. Please do not tell me that is a cleaning issue, because it's not. Second, there are a few people who are still scared to come forward. There's going to be, and that happens a lot. But one spouse in particular is extremely afraid. They're very new here, and they have already felt retaliation. So she asked me to share her statement. Would that be okay if I left her name off? Okay, thank you. Good evening. I would first like to thank you all for taking the time to listen to the concern of JBSA-Randolph residents. While it is disheartening that it had to come this far, I am hopeful that we may all begin to see Hunt Housing and their representatives being held accountable for substandard customer service and housing conditions and the military families they serve. My many feelings run through me when I complain about my current living conditions, but two come to the forefront most often. The first is guilt, as my issues seem so small in comparison to many other residents. The second is fear associated with the social retaliation and the stigma. You see, in August, when we signed our lease, the housing representative began instructing us on maintenance requests for pest control, during which she made mention of a particular resident, and I quote, who overreacts about every tiny bug in her home, requesting almost weekly pest control spraying. She continued by saying they would come to our home to spray the post within reason. But this is Texas, and we need to expect some amount of bugs in our home. You see, in that moment, a clear message was sent. Don't be that resident. Don't bother. Don't be a bother to housing for small requests, as it will inevitably make us a target of their gossip. Not only in the office, but between the office to current and incoming residents. It was made quite clear that if we complain too often, our requests may or may not be taken seriously in the future. Since then, we've had our fair share of problems in our home, to include intermittent shorts in electrical outlets, incomplete maintenance requests, shabby repair work, even once having an open flame, not spark, shoot from an electrical outlet. Today, however, I want to focus on the overall living conditions as they related to HVAC and air quality and the impact on my family. We moved here at the end of summer. Within a day moving in our home, it was very clear that we were not getting appropriate air circulation in the entire upstairs portion of our home. And no air could be felt coming from the vents in the master bedroom, so we scheduled a maintenance request. A member of the maintenance team came to our house a day or two later, informed us that the houses are historic, this is common, and there is nothing that can be done about it. He instructed us, use your ceiling fans, which we have already been using, while he closed off the vents upstairs bathrooms and one of the smaller bedrooms. This was done in an attempt to force more air to the other areas upstairs. It was 110 degrees outside and every bit of the 90 plus in the master bedroom. I was miserable even walking up the stairs because once you reached the middle landing, you were hit with such an intense heat that it took your breath away. I was unable to sleep at night even after buying 2 tower fans for our room. We only got reprieve after several weeks when the outdoor temperatures became more bearable and it began raining. Then we noticed that our windows leaked and our house began to have a musty odor. I made mention on the resident Facebook page for which the family housing director is an admin on. It was quick imply by her that it was simply condensation and we should just buy our own dehumidifier for our windows. You may also reseal them. In an attempt to not be that resident, I left it well enough alone, placed damp rid throughout my home, and cleaned off the water from my window ledges almost daily. Shortly after moving into the home, both my children became ill. They both have asthma, so I initially contributed it to a new environmental allergen. However, months later, they've continued to have a persistent cough, nosebleeds, sleep disturbances. I also began suffering from fatigue, headache, night sweats, and mental fog. I'm a healthcare professional, so I know how many factors come into play in asthma and allergies, as well as the symptoms that I am suffering. But after 5 months of exhausting attempts, we were not getting better, at which point I noticed what appeared to be mold in my air vents. My husband called in a maintenance request for a vent cleaning. We finally thought we knew what this problem was and looked forward to getting it fixed so we could see improvement in our health. However, it took a week for them to return the call to schedule the cleaning, which was scheduled a week after that. When the appointment was originally scheduled, we were told they would arrive at 8:30 the morning of. The housing office told us the appointment was set for 9. My husband was at work and I was at home given access to the home and had rearranged my work schedule to do such. I had been waiting since 8:30 and by 9:40 they still had not arrived. I called to reschedule as I had other obligations. The following week, when a member of Hunt called to reschedule, I inquired to the time as I had waited 40 minutes past the last time, given the previous service appointment, at which point the housing rep implied that I needed to be reasonable as things happen. I was insulted that she could even insinuate that I wasn't being reasonable as I had given them what I considered a fair amount of time to begin with. Nonetheless, the company hired to clean my ducts did just that. They were friendly, they were professional, and I have no complaints regarding their work. However, they did mention one of my vents appeared to have loose insulation stuck in it, and they had several recommendations for Hunts on remediations in my home. I specifically asked if it was related to mold, and they were told they were not allowed to use the word mold. But instead, they had insisted they had recommendations for Hunt housing that needed immediate attention. This was over 2 weeks ago, and I've yet to hear anything from Hunt regarding such. In the meantime, my children and I continue to experience health issues. My son, who has been diagnosed with ADHD and anxiety prior to moving here, began to struggle within about a month of being here, but even more so in the last 2 months. Initially, we figured it was him reacting to a new life in Texas. Instead of getting better, the longer we've been here, it is getting worse. We've tried everything to help him, including medication adjustments, and nothing has been working. We decided to look into environmental alterations to help him. Lo and behold, we discovered not only does mold exposure cause anxiety, depression, irritability, sleep disturbances, trouble concentrating, it also causes exacerbation in these symptoms when they've already been present. While all this is concerning, what's more terrifying are the new symptoms we're experiencing since the duct cleaning. For me, it has been vertigo and anxiety. For my 12-year-old, it is unexplained migraines, which are so intense they are causing vomiting. Many of you may be thinking, why is she still living here? Or why has she not spoken out? Let me be clear on a few things. Moving on base is not just as simple as finding a new home. The financial impact it would have on my family would be felt for a very long time to come. Not only that, if we moved off base, we would have to apply for an out-of-area transfer for my children to attend these schools on base. It is important for my children to attend the school on base, as off-base public schools perform much lower state on accountability testing and based on their counterparts. Here's the catch. Out-of-area transfers are accepted and denied not just on space available, but by behavioral records as well. Unfortunately, my son has had behavioral issues at school this year, and we're now learning may very well be because of the mold. He may or may not be accepted as the out-of-area student. So my child, who needs the best education and smaller classes possible, may very well be unable to have such because of issues magnified by our substandard living conditions. And add to the possibility of retaliation for my husband, it all begins to make me feel like my hands are tied. I've been told retaliation will not be tolerated. However, what about retaliation that is not so obvious? What about retaliation associated with the social stigma? The award-winning husband may no longer be considered for his command, no longer looks at him the same way that they used to. Because I, his wife, cannot live with that. I can't live like that. I should not have to live with wondering if speaking out has somehow, perhaps unknowingly, affected his career advancement. No one should have to choose between safe housing and appropriate education. My children should not have to struggle with getting enough sleep because they cannot stop coughing at night. I should not have to throw away pillows because they continue to get nosebleeds in their sleep. My son should not have to struggle socially because the stigma associated with the exacerbation of his behavioral issues. Families should not struggle with the physical and mental health because PPVs have failed to provide safe housing. Okay, so that was her statement, and I'll make a couple recommendations. A lot of her story is my story, so I'll only touch on mine lightly because mine has been addressed on several levels. So I'll just touch on the things that haven't been for me. But as a group, we sat down and we talked about, okay, we can't just come in and complain and not offer any kind of suggestion, any kind of positive reinforcements. We can do things on our side, but there's also things that need to happen on the other side as well. So, standardized cleaning flat fees at the end for move-outs. Not pieces of the cleaning, not some of it is covered and the rest you have to do. We have enough to do. We have enough on our plate. If we're giving the fee for move-out cleans, there can be a basic fee and an extended fee for those that go above and beyond, but we need some kind of flat fee where we don't have our hands tied and have to sit and wait those extra days in TLF and come back to the home and do more things that weren't on the list that they were going to take care of, that we paid for. So if we could get a more clear, concise list and actually have everything and have maybe 2 separate fees based on the cleanliness of the home upon move out, that would be outstanding. True preventative maintenance would be wonderful because we were told that we would have quarterly maintenance, which has started, but I've lived on the base almost 3 years and I have 4 of those the entire time. So that quarterly was not happening. Yearly duct cleaning, as requested by several of our doctors and speaking to the mold issues, they said everything is supposed to be sanitized once a year in anyone's home, especially in this type of climate. Once a year would not be too much to ask. If that is not an option, could we at least get it between residents? Everyone's bodies have their own germs. Everyone's pets have their own dirtiness. Could we at least clean between residents? Air quality testing and mold testing we've discussed. We definitely want a third party involved. That way no one's hands are in any side of it and it's completely a third party that's touching those, please. Online work order entries with real live updates, because we do not have that. We would like to place an order online saying this is my issue, from drop down boxes or whatever, and give us a section if we need to elaborate, but make a pretty basic, hey, my air conditioner isn't working, this is routine, but can you get out here? Emergency calls, those can still be fielded to the number, that's absolutely fine. But when I've asked that my dishwasher come be looked at because there's constantly mold in it, that's not really an emergency, it just means I have to stop being lazy and not use the dishwasher and wash for 6 people by hand. That's okay sometimes. But we want to know that we're really going to have that happen. And what's happening more often than not is the work order numbers, we never get them until we come into the office to ask, what is that work order? We've asked to have something done and it's missing. We don't even have record of it. So it's not even on our printouts whenever we've gotten our printout, when we had to go into the office to re-follow up on something we should have had to follow up on. So if we were able to place that online, we could have that number. We could have the updates, because we have a warehouse director now who could say, hey, we did order that part. It's awesome, it's on the way. And you give us a status update on our own work order, we can check, we can stop bogging your office down. It would be a lot more efficient all the way around, because then they could focus on the things they need to instead of fielding calls, why aren't you doing what I asked you to do? It would save everybody a lot of time. Plus, we would be able to go back and say, okay, well, this was the contractor that was assigned, or this was the maintenance worker that was assigned. That's awesome. I'll look forward to seeing whoever shows up based on that work order, and if you have to change it, fine. But they do have record of that on the printouts, so if they're gonna assign it, we should know who's coming to our home. And if we have issues with a specific worker, can we ask, hey, can that person not be here? That would be great. That person makes me uncomfortable. As far as moving forward on the work orders, we definitely want a paper that we both sign again, because I don't know what happened with that. And when I first moved in, we did have that. We had the, hey, thank you, can you sign my paper? Because I have to take my paper back and say, here, I turned it in. We want a copy of those saying, I was here, this is the work I did. Did you approve that that was done? If it was, awesome, sign it. If it's not, let's call the office real quick and see what we can do to go ahead and have them stay to finish instead of making another work order and waiting on that. The recip control, again, I'll give you the spreadsheet. I know you guys aren't in charge of that, but that definitely is completely out of hand on several units, and it's not just sporadic. It's very specific units constantly. If the contractor maintenance would be verified by housing, that would be great, because we've had several issues where a contractor has stated that they have done that work and they get paid by you and we don't get a report because we did not pay them, so that's fine. But if they told you they did the work but the work wasn't done, how do we go about fixing that? Because they've lied to you at that point. So we've been lied to and you've been lied to. So it's a multi-step issue. The pest control, I don't know what's going on with it, but it's not working. So I don't know if it's the company, I don't know if it's the chemical. Obviously we don't want to be exposed to the chemicals that are causing all the cancers and stuff that are coming up, but is there a way to look at a different method or a different approach? Because there was a point in time that our pest control was so out of control, or our pest issue was so out of control, that the school actually called me and asked me why my son had bites all over his body to do a wellness check. Then they had to show up at my house, then they had to go to my husband's command and bring him back from one of his TDYs. He was supposed to be on a 6-month TDY, and because I couldn't get things done here, because I had asked multiple times, and they sent pest control, and pest control told them, yeah, I definitely did that, It's only listed in my work orders twice. I definitely asked for more than 2, and I know that they put it in for more than 2. The man did not come into my home, and if he sprayed outside, okay, but I never got a card saying he was even there. So I can't guarantee that anybody showed up. So I don't know that that is really the way we should do that. We just want more explanation on the historic, which we got, so thank you. Let's see. We definitely want some way to possibly learn the work order history of the home that we're about to sign for. We can ask for that anywhere off base, and we're not allowed to ask for that here. We're told no. We can get work orders from the time that we move in and anything that we've placed, but we don't get to see what other people have battled before us, and that's unacceptable. We should be able to know, okay, this is something I should look out for. This toilet has leaked before. I need to be on the lookout for that so that if I see an issue, I can report it, and it'll actually be taken seriously. Because for 2 years now, that toilet has leaked into my HVAC, and like I said, it has been rectified on some levels, but not really. They came out in January while my husband was gone on a TDY, and they pulled half of the insulation. That's it. The other half is still covered in mold. It is covered in 5 separate toxic mold and fungi. 5. One of which my son is extremely allergic to. I have Penicillium aspergillus, I have Claudiosporum, I have Fusarium, I have the one that starts with A, it's like an anaphylactia or something, ataraxia, and then hyphae. That could kill my son. I have asked multiple times why my air conditioner has so many problems, why my son can't breathe in his room, why is he having so many problems, why is he getting sicker the longer we're here? Can you please check? Can you please check? Well, when we had our duct cleaning back in August from the third-party company that was hired, we were told then that there were major problems with our ductwork. Flat out to our face. There are major problems with your ductwork. It is run incorrectly. It is not the correct size. It is full of contaminants. You have all kinds of fiberglass, dust, pet dander, and more. The and more is what scared me. So we started diving more into that, and then we found 5 toxins in my home, which explains why we have been progressively getting sicker in our own home. I don't understand it. It's not acceptable. And I am constantly getting sicker myself. I've now suffered 2 abscesses in the last 6 months. The second abscess I'm still healing from, and I found out today from my doctor that that was confirmed as major toxin from overflow of my lymph nodes being completely full of contaminant of mold and fungi. Not only is it completely full, it has nowhere to go, and now I have developed MRSA. So I am battling MRSA, and I am still at this town hall tonight because this means that much to my family. I cannot live in a house that is killing me. I can't. I can't do it. Neither can they. I think that's all I have to say.
Okay, so Cassandra, I'm going to kind of run through. I made a couple notes from your suggestions. And so initially when you first started talking about standard cleaning of what you want to see implemented, so we do have a pay and go cleaning, and we offer this to everybody that moves out. And initially, this was implemented well before I got here. That it was just one form that said, you know, you pay and you go, and then there was really no details and no oomph to it, right? And so we realized, like, people would say, yeah, I'm going to do the pay and go cleaning, and we would go in these units and we would see there's actually excessive cleaning. You know, the oven hadn't been touched, or there was things that weren't what we would consider a common cleaning. So we're like, we need to revamp this sheet a little bit and put a little bit more detail on it. So that's something that we've recently done, like end of Q4 is carpet cleaning was an example of something that was kind of misconstrued within that. So there's a list and breakdown of what that is, and that's why we do pre-inspections too. We go to the home, and that's where we can have the conversations if there's the excessive cleaning. Okay.
And we had to sign for those prior to moving in.
Right.
So that's unacceptable.
Absolutely.
I brought up multi-level cleaning because I've done janitorial and residential cleaning, and I've also cleaned courthouses, and I understand that there's different levels of cleaning because some people are dirtier than others.
Yeah.
You're going to run across that.
Absolutely.
I would be perfectly fine with a housing representative coming in and telling me, you're section A cleaning.
Right.
Your house fits in A cleaning. Your house fits a B cleaning. Here is your fee.
Right.
But we don't have time to sit and nitpick of okay, time to clean the oven. Okay, well, the oven wasn't clean enough. Come clean it again.
Right.
Okay, we'll come do this. So if you guys could provide tiered cleaning fees, that would be outstanding instead of doing the single line item. We don't have time for that.
Right. So I actually wrote that down as a good idea. My legalese brain kicks in when I start seeing tiered cleanings or tiered services and things like that, because it could be a fair housing issue or an instance. Yeah.
Because I quit the company I was working for because they were screwing you guys over.
Yeah.
They were doing the pilot pass cleaning.
Oh, so, yeah, I mean, I will admit, as we started revamping some of the maintenance processes, some of the quality of cleaning was something that I personally voiced with Audra and Robert. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to get into like really specific answers to all your questions, and that's kind of why I stopped talking, because what. Yep. Right.
Give us an amount so that we can leave and just hand you that key. We
Right.
don't have time to do the oven or do the blind or do this, do that. So figure out what your commitment is
Right.
so that we can just hand that over to you and have one less stress.
Right.
When we're
Just
trying
give me one second. And I think that, like I said, I wrote it down as something to take back to corporate. I don't necessarily know that we have the ability to make that decision right now, given the fact that it could be perceived, oh, well, they gave me a $500 cleaning. Do they really think I'm that dirty? Or I was a resident that complained, and all of a sudden I have a $500 cleaning bill. I don't want to get into that. So what I want to do is kind of take a lot of this feedback back and kind of go into systematic approaches to a lot of the concerns, just to make sure that we're making the best educated decision on what's best for Randolph and AETC as a whole, and not. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next thing that you hit the nail on the head was, as far as the preventative maintenance, we knew it wasn't in place. It wasn't in place when I got here. It wasn't in place before I was here. And so, that was something that we looked at, like, hey, we really need to sit down and figure out a way forward with this. And Robert and I put our heads together in the team, and we did have some staffing challenges and trying to figure out, like, how are we going to get this in there? How are we going to do everything? How are we going to schedule it? How are we going to get the notice out? There was a lot of moving pieces to it. And basically what it came down to is that the on-call technician will do PMs for half of the day. And then after he knocks out so many during that time frame that is scheduled, and then after that he goes and completes work orders. So that's been a very effective system for us to come through and do. So this will actually be the second quarter that we're compliant with preventative maintenance, and we've had some challenges with preventative maintenance because, like I said, our team hasn't done it before. So when they're in the house, the resident will say, hey, I need this fixed and this fixed and this fixed, and sometimes that message doesn't always get relayed. And with Robert and I in and out of houses, the last couple of weeks, that's something that came up to us that we're working on addressing internally. So Overall, I think it's going to be a very successful program, and it's definitely something that should have been initiated, so yes. Second thing, duct cleaning. So I actually pulled the numbers today. We've actually done a third of the property as far as duct cleaning goes, and our goal is to, we don't want to have to put you out of the home for 2 to 3 hours while we go in and do duct cleaning. We Absolutely.
Yet, when other people have had it done, you specifically stated you had to be in the home.
No.
Because they were with a contractor. So, do we have to have a representative with a contractor, or do we not?
So I have personally not been in a home while a duct cleaning has been performed. I have not been in a home during that time frame. We do recommend that you are out of the home because if it's environmental concerns, yes, I am there. As far as asbestos, mold, lead-based paint, if Robert goes out there and he needs my, excuse me? I have not been to a home for a duct cleaning.
How does that not fall under it when that's where our home is? Is that not an environmental thing? Where is your environmental? Which ones are those? I guess.
Okay, so mold does fall under environmental. Duct cleaning does not fall under environmental due to the fact that it should have been a preventative maintenance issue. That being said, if there is growth found on the registers or inside the duct, at that point in time, we will treat it in accordance with NADA certification and recommended treatments. At that point in time, it does become an environmental concern. So, right.
So remediation, false remediation was done in my home, making my family even stiffer than we were before because they did not know how to identify that in a proper manner.
We are working with our contractors, specifically our duct cleaning contractors, on some of the things we want them to do that they're not doing. So again, my goal is to not necessarily address every single specific complaint or laundry list, and I've taken notes and Audra's taken notes tonight. We have children that are almost falling asleep. So, but my goal is I want you to understand that, especially, and I'm well aware of your concerns. I'm working closely with AFCEC to kind of review some of that stuff. I personally provided some data points up to my AFCEC PM, and we're working through some of those. So that's why it is so important, and I'll say it for the third time, that you provide your information to the team in the back so that I can personally track. And like I said, I don't want to get into a whole lot of specific things, and I hope you can be patient that we don't address them tonight, because we want to. Well, agreed. No, agreed. And I'm. Sure.
Let's be perfectly clear. If there's issues in this laundry list that you're saying that we all have,
I'm not.
That's first of all, I'm not going after the contractors.
Right.
The spouses are going to go to you and owe you responsibility.
Agreed. And they should. I mean, like we've said time and again, our goal is to make this a better situation. I don't have that answer.
This would be a huge lawsuit on the outside.
It sounds like it.
It really does. Because I'm not hearing you wanting to actually be empathetic and you care about us as tenants.
Sir, I apologize.
I know that you come from a legal background. So what? We're human.
I don't come from a legal background. I do not come from a legal background. I've been in this business 25 years. I have worked on the government side as well as the privatized housing side.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
How many units do you cover in this space?
317, sir.
317 How many of those are out of line?
I would say roughly 300.
Out of 300 homes, the BH that you're collecting, not taking 300 ones, just about. Out of BH that you're collecting, you're going to sit there and say you're underfunded, you're unfunded. First of all, you credibility with everybody in this room. Put that out there.
You have. And I think it's just because we're trying to give you our experiences, but it seems like you're being, you're trying to make excuses or justify what's going on. And we understand that the problems are going to be fixed right away, and that it's going to take some time to get to the bottom of it, and that you're going to take what we're saying here back and try to fix it. But the way that you're approaching and the way that you're answering everything is kind of condescending, and it seems like we're just going to be here.
And that's not my intent. What I don't want to have is Audra, and honestly, I'm playing front line for her. That's what I'm doing. I don't want her to stand up here and answer everyone's concerns line by line tonight. I want to make it strategic, make it impactful. I know everyone in this room is tired of lip service. I guarantee that, and that's my goal, is to not have it appear as lip service.
Sorry.
We are
So, right, so what, I'm sorry, so what we're going to do in the interest of time, because I know there's some folks that have been waiting patiently to do, I'm not trying to cut the conversation off because it's very relevant, but I do also have to give other folks an opportunity to speak. So,
I just wanted to tell Audra thank you because I did not come here to defend you today at all. I didn't come here to attack you, but I darn sure did not come here to defend you. So thank you for actually trying to be empathetic to what I said because I know you and I are on some levels not compatible. On other levels, I feel that you've taken this seriously, and I look forward to actually speaking with you after this meeting. So thank you. And actually, talking to us so that I can stop because, to be honest with you, and be real, it is hard to be a spouse. I know for a fact that you live here on baby. So that's a hard thing to carry. You know, you go to bed every night knowing that you're dealing with a lot of the issues we're dealing with, and yet you have to get up every morning and put on that hunt tag. So you're playing two sides of the fence. So I have great respect for you, but I know that you were just on the cusp of answering something from an empathetic point of view. And once again, what we're all battling is that swooping of the corporate, let me handle this and get the corporate response. That's not fair to you, and that's not fair to us. That's all I'm saying. I did it.
So,
well,
and the only reason I
so
did
let me
cut
go
her
ahead.
shirt
No,
was the-
I'm sorry.
was the timing issue. As I was looking back there, and there were children falling asleep, and I right.
No, thank you very, very much. You're very welcome, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am, please.
My name is Allie, and we've been here for 3 years. We arrived just before Christmas a couple of years back, and I've got to say, it hasn't all been bad. I think that a lot of the issues here, like we had flooring issues, it was taken care of. We had needed ceiling fans. They came out and they provided several of them for us. Robert's been really great. Audra's been great to work with. We've had a lot of good experiences. The school here is like ranked, number 5 in all of Greater San Antonio. It's a phenomenal school. My husband works all the way at Lackland, but we live on this base because of this school. It's not because of the historic housing. And it's not because of any other thing. It's because he's willing to commute that far so that our kids could go to that school. And I'm so, so thankful for the amazing teachers and faculty at that school and the job that they do with our children and with the EFMP people and the things that they deal with. I've heard some amazing stories. We've loved this base more than any other base we've been at, and we've been at quite a few now. We're coming up to the end of our career. But now we're at a point where we are concerned with the health and safety of our home, like many others are. I was told by my physician after finding out that I have a series of medical problems I'm not going into, but I was told by my physician and given a doctor's note that I needed to have mold testing done in my home. This was over a year ago. I took it into the housing office, and I gave it to them and asked, can we please get mold testing done in my home per my physician? And I was told that no, they don't cover that. So I asked, well, it is kind of expensive. If I were to, I can understand you all not wanting to take the risk in doing that, because if it comes back and it's not, positive for mold, which it clearly is mold, but even if, coming from your point of view, even if it wasn't mold, then you guys would be out that money for having tested something that didn't exist. So my question was then, well, how about we pay for the mold testing, and if it comes back positive, then you guys would cover the cost of us having that testing done and then help to remediate the problem. And we were given answers like, well, I don't really think that that's probably a great way of that going about being done. What we could do is maybe have maintenance come out and drill a little hole and put a camera in there and see if there's mold there. So I was like, it's not the right answer or a great answer, but it is an answer, and I'm willing to accept that as a start, right? But then when maintenance came out to look at it, they're like, oh, they just shoved it off and brushed it under the rug. It was, these houses are old and they're historic. We keep hearing that over and over. And it was, well, we could drill a hole back there, but you wouldn't really see anything anyways. And, it's a shower and it's a bathroom. Things get moist and wet. And really, it's just a lot of excuses. And I'm not coming from a place of disdain or any of that. Like, I really am trying to find solutions to these issues. But we've come to a point now where we've pretty much decided, is there a way for us to get out of this situation and allow our kids to still have the awesome education that they have? And many of the people I know have taken that risk, and they've said, well, we're just going to take our family and we're going to move off base so that we don't deal with this anymore. And that's a great answer, except that then you have to deal with well, you might end up on the wait list. And we are stuck in a situation now where I feel like we're deciding between our kids, or our family's health and our kids' education. And that's not fair. That's really, it's very emotional and very difficult decision to make. I will say that there is more to base housing than just the house itself. The community that we have, the people are amazing. When I had my last surgery, which wasn't all that long ago, I had people that are in this room right now that came and brought meals to me, that took care of my family. And there's something to be said about that, but I would give that up to know that my kids aren't getting sick. And for a physician to write a note saying that I needed this specifically because my symptoms are in line with that. I didn't ask him, does this line up with mold? Does this line up with this? No. He said, you have this. You need to go get tested for it to confirm that, which I did. I paid out of my own pocket to have this testing done to make sure that what I was experiencing was in line with what he was saying. I got those tests confirmed, and then he came back and he said, you need to have mold testing done in your home. And he goes, you need to get out of that house. Yeah, if in fact this test, yes. And,
every piece of furniture, because those spores attach. So it's not just, oh, we're going to move. Now we have to replace everything we own because we can take that stuff to the next house. That's coming from a doctor.
yeah, insurance doesn't cover that either, by the way. So if we, let's say I call up Audra tomorrow and I say, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to speak to you guys in this forum. I would like to know now, because we put some of our tax money aside to be able to do mold testing, if we do this on our own and it comes back that this is black mold and we find out that we have to move, we have to go off base because we cannot be safe in our home. And I already know that I'm not safe. I know, we both confirmed they've already done the testing. The testing's been done. There are samples out there. And I find out we have to leave everything we own behind. And we have to move off base. We have to come up with a deposit for a house. And then I don't even have a guaranteed spot for our kids at the school that we moved onto this base to begin with for. Then what? Who's there to help us through that? And that's my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So as far as the contents go, we have run into situations corporate-wide where we've been able to clean contents. We've had, either a contractor of your choice, as long as we verify that their standings are good with the NADA, or our contractor who is a third party, and we have a couple different ones that we deal with, can come and clean your contents. So please know that we will try everything we can to make sure that you don't lose anything that is valuable to you. Everything up to and including laundering every piece of clothing in your home, if that's what it takes, because we have done that in other instances where there has been severe allergies to environmental concerns. So don't. Well, and I can't speak to, I'm. Well, what I'm saying is if we get involved and we're made aware of situations and I can't atone for sins of the past. I can't, I'm sorry. I wish none of this had happened. My concern is if we have a current situation, please leave me your information. I want to talk to you. I want to go through this. I'm going to be spending probably the next 2 months of my life split between Laughlin and here, and either myself or a member of my leadership team. So I am going to be readily available. I am going to be in San Antonio or in Del Rio for the unforeseeable future. Please leave me your information. If we need to do some more testing, if we need to do
And that's another issue too that I want to address, because whenever I did mention that, yes, I do believe this is mold, the response that we get when it comes to addressing the cleaning and maintenance of that is that you should bleach the walls to prevent the mold from growing and to kill the mold that's on there. The problem is that anybody that knows a decent amount when it comes to mold is that you don't know what type of mold that is. There are several types of mold. Some of them are super harmful, some of them really not so much. But we do not know. We don't have the ability or the tools or our resources to be educated as to what type of mold it is that we are dealing with right here, unless we have that testing available to us. So to tell us to go and bleach it when anyone with a medical degree or background would tell you just don't touch it, you shouldn't touch that, because you don't know what it is. And by trying to bleach it and stuff, you're actually making it worse. So to tell us to go and bleach the walls to get rid of the mold is really not a good answer, because it could be causing the problem to be worse. So I guess what we're asking is for an actionable ability to have testing done either on our own so that we can get action done now and be reimbursed for that, so that we can move forward with our lives. I mean, I don't know. My husband and I, we only have 2.5 years left. We don't know yet. We're at the end of our assignment. Here, we don't know if we're going to get orders or not, because we're kind of in that little window. Totally fine, except that if we want to try to move off base right now, we would need to get testing done to know for sure if we could take these items that we have with us now with us or not, because we don't know what type of mold we're dealing with. So if we wanted to move off base, we would need to get the testing done just to know if the stuff that we're taking with us is safe, because it hasn't been tested yet, so we don't know what that is.
So
and
did
then,
you get testing done?
I have not yet. We had to save up money because it's expensive, so we were planning on doing that with our tax returns this year.
This is actually relevant to what she's saying. On Monday, in fact, when you ran for my house, I had my kids were at the medical as a pediatrician, and I had the lead testing done. So I tried to get her to do mold testing, and she even told me that she was kind of for mold testing. And last day, those specifically what kind of mold they were testing for.
Yes, so there are tests available, but they need to know what they're testing for.
And she
So there are some ways that soft goods can be cleaned and remediated. I personally have just been through a very similar situation. We were
And
able
don't
to,
get me wrong, we are definitely open to hearing what you have to say about that and how that can happen.
We test before, we test after, and as long as we get clear tape, we call it tape lifts, as long as we get clear tape lifts on various surfaces after the remedial cleaning is done. So I can walk you through that process, share your information with me.
So speaking to you after is going to get us on a short list to possibly have these things taken care of.
Can you post it on the website so we all can know?
I'm talking the ones who have been
Right.
told and ordered by their doctors to take care of. Those people, are we going to be able to work in and get on a short list of you to do those tests?
So I will work with our environmental team to review each case that is brought to my attention. That's the best answer I can give you, because they're the professionals at determining what. I would love to say, yes, we can save everything in your house and we'll be on your merry way. We've had success in doing that because I've been involved in similar situations somewhat recently within the past, I'd say 90 days, where we were successful in reclamating some issues. So
Then the other issue that we face personally, this won't apply to everybody, but it may apply to others, is that if the easy solution for us was to make sure that our stuff could be taken with us, or that it was able to be cleaned and taken with us, and we were able to move off base, and we've been guaranteed a spot for our children in the school, which I'm so unbelievably grateful for. That still leaves us in an awkward situation because we're in that time frame where we don't know if we're going to get orders or not. So we can't buy a house. We could rent, and that would be fine, but we would have, it would just be very difficult in this point. Yeah, well, we're not guaranteed, 2 years here right now. We don't know that we're going to be here for the next 2 years or the next 2.5 until he retires or whatever the case may be. So we're going to have to pay the deposit. We're going to have to pay for the move, and we're going to have to deal with those things that maybe can't be remediated. But
So a lot of this is the first time I'm hearing some of this. I know a couple of the names that I've heard this evening because I do work very closely with Audra and her team here. I do have some information from AFCAC that was provided to me based upon some of the feedback after the hearings. But I can't promise answers to questions that I've never been asked. So that's why I sound like a broken record, but I implore you to just leave me your information at some point in time in the next, I would say, by the middle of next week. So that's my commitment is to reach out to everyone who needs a personal touch and say, what can we do to make the situation better? I'm not going to have all the answers right away. I'm going to have to work with other members of my leadership team to make sure that we're in the position to be able to make systematic improvements and make sure that from a strategy perspective, that we're not just favoring those who are coming to us with the loudest voices, because that can also be perceived as favoritism or fair housing violations and things like that. So to your point, is putting it on Facebook the right thing? I don't know, because, unfortunately, being in this business a long time, I have people who don't have legitimate complaints, and I've been on the other side of that. But I think the people that are in this room are passionate about making sure that we're doing the right thing. So allow us some time to work through that process. Give us your information. Let me work with our environmental team. Hands down, I will say, I have the best team on the ground here at Randolph. I do have the best RMD of the group. So there's 4 RMDs that are hunt-wide. My RMD personally, he used to be a moisture remediation specialist. He's still certified. He's still doing that for us. And then our environmental director that will be coming onto our portfolio, hopefully, the formal announcement will be forthcoming, is likely going to be Nick. So we're good. When you say this done, what? Okay.
So I want a team to come and look at my stuff, because I found stuff in our kids' toys, which Audra came and she gave some money for it, but the rest of the other toys we had to get rid of because it was mildew, not mold. It's called mildew condensation, and it was covered up by spray paint.
Right.
But I'm not taking that stuff with me to my next duty station. No.
I would recommend, and I would recommend having a PCS or every PCS, because these are old. I know a lot of these homes come through the 30s.
Right.
They're just naturally, there's already issues with mold. I mean, we spent 4 years of life before we here. We had a lot of issues there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the problem is some of this mold, and my sister-in-law's been in the office over Arizona, and there's some spores of mold that are so dangerous they will kill you.
Right.
And they will kill your family. And we don't know what they are. And some mold is harmless.
Right.
But there's going to be, but there's mold in these homes. They're telling people it might take years for control, but
Right.
it'll come eventually.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of mold that I think, I don't think I can speak personally here. Me personally, that's the kind of mold I'm concerned about. So we test these homes every time somebody PCS, and I think that really needs to stop.
Well, and that is an area that we are looking into developing a protocol. And at the very least, visual inspections, visual documentations, making sure that, so when we started getting into cleaning the decks every year, that is not the recommended, yes, I'm using air quotes and air quotes, but that's not the recommended cleaning cycle. It's actually about every 3 years. Some documentation says every 7 to 8 years. We want to, and that may be a personal, like, so I might be allergic to a certain type of mold that you're not, and if you're testing a shed and if you're sensitive to that, that may be a directive. I mean, I'd like to see some of the research on that. I'm not a mold expert nor am I a physician, so I don't know why he would have recommended that, but I'm just for industry standards, state otherwise. But that is, so the Dutch cleaning, the PMs, a lot of that stuff is protocols that we are actively developing, implementing, and fixing, because honestly, it was broken. And I apologize for that.
Thank you very much. Ma'am, please.
Can't hear her. Mike, is the mic on?
I never thought I would stand up here and say I'm fortunate, but listening to everyone's stories, I am definitely much more fortunate than pretty much everyone else in this room right now. I've had a lot more transparency with my home. I have gone and asked for maintenance requests for the previous household. I have received that, which the people who lived there prior, they did nothing. And those concerns, when I moved in, which I had a laundry list of stuff that's still in the process of being fixed, needed to be done. And my major concern with that, minus the gaping holes in the floor under the stairs and in the water heater room to the ground where rats and, anything from snakes and mice and roaches can come up into, is why are the houses not being walked through? And why is there not a detailed list of things that should be checked off prior to move-in? We have bought houses, we have rented houses, we have gone elsewhere. You go through and they have a very long list of items that they have to check and make sure everything is in working order. To give you an example, when I walked in to my house, we had already, before sending this email, spent $500 of our own dollars to caulk, replace light fixtures. We had broken sconces. We had holes in things. Because we know at most bases maintenance is overwhelmed, we fix those small things. They usually don't care. They're like, hey, just fill out a form, you can leave, whatever. We're like, fine. Most people don't have that luxury. But we walked into ants on every surface of our house. They were climbing up the stairs, they were on the windows, they were in the carpet. We still can't get rid of them. The guy who comes out to spray, I feel, is just a big joke. We don't even call him anymore, we just keep trying to handle it. But I mean, we have holes in the floor from where the ants have made a tunnel through the subflooring in between the levels, and they have covered my daughter's sink on multiple occasions. And he's just like, that's fine, they come here. You just need to come out. We can't do this more than every couple of weeks, but you know, whatever. So we're just like, forget it, we'll just do it ourselves. You keep going, and we have done so much outside, but our windows, we didn't have screens on some of our windows. We had windows that had gaps in the frames. We even had windows that had the frames cut and had open holes to the outside. That was actually never fixed. I had to fix those on my own. That was actually in an email from October, and I have just taken care of it. I got tired of waiting. I wish I would stop moving my phone. A few days after we moved, I had reported that all my sinks were dripping. They were dripping so bad and for so long from the previous resident that the surfaces of the sinks had cracked and rusted. Housing was awesome. They did send someone out and they refinished them. They got most of it, fixed up. It does look a lot better. But if you are walking through a house saying it's move-in ready, why do I have food on blinds? Why do I have macaroni and cheese on the floor? Why do I have honey on my cabinets? Why do I have broken fixtures? Why do I have broken sinks? Why do I have toilets that are leaking? I still, master bath plug sink for the plug for the sink doesn't work. It still doesn't work. In fact, they came in, they put a strainer and said, until we can get something. I keep getting told for everything, until we can get a part. So today, that awesome new email system saying that we're gonna send you emails for parts, I got one for a part that was supposed to be ordered 6 weeks ago. And they were just telling me that it was ordered today. And it's for my door, to keep the bugs from coming in. It gets a little frustrating when I have to keep going down, because I do go down. I email, I call. I keep spending my own money to fix things because I get tired of waiting. We needed a system for the stair lights. It took weeks to get that fixed. We needed our dryer vent on the outside of the house was falling off, and ants were making a hole in the dryer vent. It took weeks to get that fixed. We had no caulking in our upstairs bathroom because it looks like the floor is falling, and that still hasn't been addressed. We have cracking. I have video that you can actually spin around the whole shower, and it goes through, and water is going into the tile. I have spoken to every single person in that building regarding this issue. Water is getting into the walls. The caulking, as soon as they do it, 2 days later, it separates, because when you stand in there, it just pulls away. The tile is just getting worse and worse. And now, instead of wondering, we have a second one forming. So something is really wrong with that shower, and we keep getting told, we'll have to talk to someone about it, and it's never been addressed. That's been 4 months. It's on my move-in sheet. The tiles are cracked. I'm not going to worry about the rest, but my goal for all of this, besides everyone's health concerns being addressed, is there needs to be more accountability for maintenance. I love our maintenance staff. They really do try. They are constrained. I don't feel like a rubber gasket for a door should take 4 to 6 weeks to order when I can walk down to Home Depot and buy one for $6. I worked at a hardware store for a while. I know they're not very expensive. I'm tired of spending my own money to fix a property that is not mine. I try to treat everyone with respect, even with my horrible, horrible carpet. Don't say I'm fortunate to have carpet, please. It was soaked with urine. You could walk up the stairs, you could smell it. They came out, they had someone clean it again. I could smell it. We used dehumidifiers, we used fans. Then they were like, yes, we're gonna replace this. So the guy came out, he acted like he didn't speak English. I knew he did. And he kept telling me the carpet was fine. He replaced the padding and put the old carpet back down. Why is that okay? So then I called, I emailed. I finally got a return call. A week later, it got replaced fully. But now that that smell is gone, it's in the upstairs too. I didn't even bother coming down because you have tried so hard to mitigate it, but I can't move every single piece of furniture out of my house to have the carpet replaced when the carpet guy, when he came to steam clean, said it should have been done before I moved in anyway. It smells disgusting. There's Scentsy wax in it, there's ants, there's food. I've steam cleaned it, you've had it steam cleaned, and it's never clean. My house was disgusting. And I'm a clean person, and it freaks me out. But if there could be a tracking system, I know that was brought up before, but Balfour Beatty, how much they are the bane of my existence as well, for my previous place of living, they had an amazing system. You go online, it tells you when you put it in, who came to do it, and when it was completed. That system was not infallible, it did fail. We had many complaints where they would mark it as completed, but they never showed up at my house. So, I mean, there are issues with it, but something to show that, hey, this request that I put in 4 months ago, it's still there, so that maybe there can be a little bit more accountability with things not getting taken care of.
We are working with Yardi to implement Rent Cafe. There's just some interfacing that's just not as really, it scared me. We are working with Yardi to develop and implement Rent Cafe, which is, I believe, what Balfour Beatty was using. It's an interface that kind of syncs with Yardi. You can go on, you can just look at work order history, you can look at home availability before you even show up here. So that is something that we are working on. It's just taking a bit due to some interface challenges.
And that would be great, but it also comes into, like, when we put in a request, like, if it's not approved for some unknown reason, like my Frankenstein toilet is what I call it, everybody should know about this toilet by now. It's 3 different toilets in one. So the top is 4 inches bigger than the tank, and the tank sits askew from the bowl, and the bowl is peeling. I have put it on my walk-in, I have put it in every email, and we were told it is functional, it does not need to be replaced. I cannot tell you how many times I have almost broken this toilet because I go to touch the top to go clean the tub, and the lid flips because it doesn't fit the toilet. And it's the quality of the fixtures themselves. So one of our other concerns was we had a faceplate for our shower nozzle. It was parked in the center. I don't even know how you crack a metal faceplate, but somebody did. Somebody was amazing. They fixed it with washers. So they pulled it out and put washers there to keep it in place. Evidently that was supposed to be a temporary fix. And because I kept going back, it did get fixed, but some people, we give up. I don't give up too easily. I keep going back. The quality of the fixes are just not appropriate. They're cheap, which I understand cost is an issue, but I'm not asking for granite. I'm not asking for cherry cabinets or, beautiful hardwood flooring. I understand we live in a place that's high traffic, people moving in, people moving out, and it needs to have basic fixtures that are gonna last. No problem with that. I just want fixtures that I can use without them falling apart. So anything to improve that would be phenomenal.
So Carla, thank you. I know we've talked a good bit, and I really appreciate you getting up today. There definitely are some things, especially holding the ends accountable. I think some of the recent things that we've implemented, such as us sitting down every day and looking at the work orders that we have and what needs to be, what do we need to order? Hey, this one's been in here for a little bit. Look, what's going on? Where are the notes? Who's been there? What is it pending? Those are the conversations we're having every morning, and we've seen success with that. I've said this to the team multiple times. 2018 was really a lessons learned for us. There was a lot of things that we didn't do the right way. There was a lot of things that we didn't. We're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done it that way. And I know you moved in towards the end of 2018, but 2019 is best practices. We're implementing these things and moving forward, and we want you to move into a home that's clean and that's ready. And ever since I got here and just moving in and walking into my home and seeing how my home is, that was always a goal that I had. And Angela and the corporate team, they had to keep pushing and telling me, like, you can't build Rome overnight, because I was like, nothing is changing. Like, I wanted that immediate reaction to it. And I think getting the right team in place was key, because we didn't have the right team players. I think we have a good system going forward, and all I can do is apologize for what you moved into. I do realize and I do know everything that you dealt with. Lisa has communicated that to me. We've talked through some of the things when you come into the office. So I would definitely like to get with you after this, and of course everybody in this room too. I've said it. And I personally haven't been to your house to walk through and look at everything and talk through everything. So if you would allow me, I would love to come over and do that. Yes, so and the plug and
Back to the mic.
There are some behind the scenes things that we also caught that, I mean, they have been remediated, but like the electrical being wired to the wrong side of the building. Like how that didn't get caught prior to us. I mean, whoever did that, it's years ago, it's a fire hazard as well. We've also replaced all of our outlets because they were so loose, nothing would stay in them.
And you did the pretty colored.
And beautiful light. This was like, have at it, you know what you're doing. I'm like, I've taken a floor to the bones, or a house to the bones, I know how to do it. It's not a problem, but like I said, we've spent hundreds and hundreds of our own dollars because we got tired of waiting, and
that's not a great
so the communication is also a little lacking. Absolutely. We've addressed that a little bit in the past, and thank you. But when you get mysterious phone calls saying that you have an appointment, you're like, what? I've received 6 of those in the last couple of weeks, and I did not schedule an appointment. I did not have one, and then it kept getting canceled. And so they would call me, and they would say, okay, well, we're going to be there for your appointment, or we can't make it for your appointment. I'm like, what appointment? Just show up, because I don't know what you're talking about. But communication would be so important, and if you can't get something, tell us. I'm willing to work with it, but
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to go over here to the right, sir.
So, ma'am, gentlemen, I appreciate you coming and listening to our concerns. It doesn't mean a whole lot. In the interest of brevity, I'm going to try to be quick. First off, the only reason that I live on the installation, the only reason my family and I live on the installation is the school. Talk about that here in a second. Concur wholeheartedly on the ducts. Every time I replace my air filter, I look down and there's a scrub brush that's just sitting in the duct. Looks like it's been there for at least 20 years. I kind of looked at it and the pest problem. So I'm not an entomologist, I profess to be. But every time there's really any amount of rain, but moderate amount of rain, my yard, between myself and my neighbors, both of my neighbors on either side, floods. And then it seems like the volume of insects and other animals enters my house. I have video of scratching inside my walls, video of roaches running under the front porch, and I've asked for the front porch to be sealed, and that hadn't happened, so I'm not sure why. And then on my most recent deployment, I had to call back 3 times from my deployed location in the middle of the night to talk to both Audra and to Chloe. Things happened after I did that, but it really shouldn't have gotten to that point. And as we all understand, it's coming again. So I'm sure you can understand my concern about having to do that again. And then the same thing about health concerns, unexplained illnesses, that sort of thing. So comforting the other on my own, but really that's kind of really all I wanted to say was kind of take Mark's day. There are others. The only other thing was, ma'am, you had mentioned your discussions with the superintendent of the school district, and I'm sure you understand it's a big risk if we choose to move our family off the installation. Is that a policy in writing anywhere? Is that something we can be provided that says, hey, look, if we move off due to these kind of concerns, is it written anywhere that there's an exception?
Right.
Great point. I just spoke with him about an hour before the meeting, so nothing's in writing yet. So I wouldn't sign a lease tonight for your household phase. But let me work with him tomorrow, and let's get something in writing so that there's a guarantee for you families that have health and safety concerns that you're not going to be on a waiting list, that there's a guaranteed spot for your child, no matter what. I'll venture to say, no matter what the disciplinary issues might have been. I know one of our families had a challenge and a concern about that, but that shouldn't be a factor for this situation.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate it.
Well, let's thank the school district. They're pretty amazing. He reached out on his own. I knew that was a concern of one of our families, but he reached out on his own, so I think that's fantastic on his part.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And for Audra, I know it's tough, and I can tell you that I've had good experiences with you, and you've been nothing but responsive. So thank you, and thank you for being here. I know it's hard. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Andrea Richardson. Basically, we moved here because my husband, who's the Army, got orders. We were staying at Goodfellow. He got orders. My kids were really struggling in school. We decided to move here since I didn't have any family here and we needed to be somewhere anyways. The schools are amazing here. My son, we've moved so many times. We've been part of the military since 2002. We've moved so many times and my kids weren't getting the attention. They're finally addressing the issues with my child that he's been having. They're giving him the help that he needs. I'm here alone with 5 kids because my husband is overseas. I don't have time to call in maintenance every single day because I do work full-time as well. So whenever I call, then 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna have to be home on top of all the other things that are going on with my kids, basketball practice, appointments and stuff like that. I have called in issues. When we first got here, the refrigerator wasn't working. It took like 5 times, and I feel like I had to be kind of stern for them to come out and replace my refrigerator that clearly wasn't working because nothing would freeze. I lost like 3 sets of groceries because I trusted them when they said that they were gonna fix it. My stove, it's been since Christmas. I had to call on Christmas Day because my stove went out. They did come to fix it right away. I felt bad having to have someone come to my house, but on Christmas there's nowhere else for me to go eat. So I had to call to feed my kids that day. Still, I have a makeshift stove. 3 of the burners work. If I need to use the 4th burner, I have to light it with a lighter. And I have 5 kids, so I need all 4 burners and my oven. Initially when my stove wasn't working, he was like, well, because it was really just the oven that wasn't working, maintenance was like, well, we don't have any other stoves, so you're just gonna have to make do. Same excuse I got when my refrigerator wasn't working. My toilet wasn't working. Called maintenance, yes, they came out and fixed it. It seemed like it was working until the handle broke again. I took the lid off and come to find out there was a paper clip in there. Instead of them just replacing the handle, they put some makeshift paper clip on the metal piece and on the chain for us to flush the toilet. And I'm just like, wow, $1,800 now. So then, I have no sidewalks. I haven't made any complaints about that because I'm sure that housing knows that there's no sidewalks. I know that everybody knows that when it rains, the grass is wet, so we're hopping over stones to get to my car. Or either I have to park on the other side into one of the parking lots, which is a little bit of a distance. And if that's what I have to do, that's fine, but I don't think that that's worth $1,800 when I can move my space. But I really can't because my job is right across the street, my kids go to school on base, the doctor is right here on base. Like, this is convenience. It's not because we don't have the opportunity to move off base. There's reasons that there is base housing, you know? And I hear I have the same issues. I have mold growing on my bathroom wall. I haven't talked about that. I've sprayed it, but I'm sure that pretty much everybody on this base probably has mold in their house if it hasn't been painted over with 10 coats of paint. And I think that's something that housing is fully aware of, and that the leadership on this base is fully aware of. And I know that people are aware of it because we had to sign the addendums when we moved into the house. And the thing about that is that you have a certain trust. So yes, we did get the addendums, my husband signed the addendums before we moved in here, but I have a trust that the military is not going to set me up for failure. That yes, there is possibility that there's some issues, but to the extent that we do have the issues, it's just like unfathomable. I can't say it, I'm sorry. Like I had no idea that the mold or the mildew or whatever we want to call it is was going to be growing from behind my blinds. It started off in one spot. Now the whole entire wall is covered. My whole entire, the painting in the shower is covered. Of course, when I moved in, it looked nice and neat and bearable. But then after a few weeks, after you're cleaning the towel and you notice that the grout is coming off and you see all the nasty mold and mildew everywhere, it's just like, wow, they really let us move into a place like this. There's spots in my floor that I feel like just one good step in my kitchen, like I'm gonna step through. I know that that was there before we moved in houses. Like, if nobody complained about it, then that's a surprise. If housing didn't walk through the house before I moved in, I mean, come on, like some of this stuff is like, how much do I have to call in? How come you don't know what's going on with your houses to the certain extent? My daughter, her arm went through my back door. The door is glass pane. When I saw the glass, I couldn't believe how thin the glass was. It's probably not even as thick as my proximity card. My daughter is gonna have permanent scars, and I'll be happy to show you the pictures. She has like 4 or 5 cuts on her arm here, and then one long cut across her forearm. That's probably gonna be with her for the rest of her life. I just couldn't, when I saw how thin that glass was, I was just like, wow. So these are things that, to me, housing should already be aware of. You know how cheap your fixtures are. It's not like, oh, you need to complain because your daughter's arm went through and our glass pane is so thin. I mean, it's just like, these are things that you already know. And I feel like housing is bamboozling us because technically I think all houses just need to straight up be torn down, and I think everybody here knows that. I mean, I think that there's probably some document out there that nobody wants to discuss. I think you know how bad the situation is, and I think that all these fixes sound nice, but I think that everybody knows that the problem is much deeper than something that's fixable. And in the future, I don't think military members should be allowed to move into housing unless we're going to build some new housing. We've been at many installations, but my only issues have really been with Hunt. Goodfellow, you mentioned Goodfellow. Goodfellow is just as bad. Our housing fixtures were rusted, the walls were so thin. The wood on my doors in my house, I know we're gonna have to pay for the doors when we move because half of them have cracks in them. The wood, again, just like my glass, is not thicker than this. So it's like, what are you doing with the money that we're giving? What are you doing with that? My child, I have, like I said, I have 5 kids, 4 boys. One of my kids, he does have behavior issues. Like, he acts up. So I'm scared to move off base because we might not be able to come here, and one of my other children really needs the education that's going to be provided here. So I just say, please take a deeper look and just be honest. Have some integrity. That's one of the Army core values. Have some integrity, because this is ridiculous.
If I could get your payment information, I want to cross-check information at Goodfellow and make sure that the challenges you face at Goodfellow, because that's also under my portfolio, are addressed as well. Did you live on base or off base?
I lived, well, the housing was off base, but it was run by a friend. I have to say that it was such a relief to come here with all of because you guys have exceptional customer service. You're very empathetic. I can tell that you really try to fix the problem, but I definitely can't say the same for your staff at Goodfellow.
How long ago did you move?
We moved here in May 2018.
the window screens also. Is it possible for you guys to come and, like, I don't know, spot check every house and put screens up? Because, like, if I want to ventilate my master bathroom, which is covered in mold all the time, I have to open a window that has no screen. I have kids, I have animals. So I crack the bathroom window that has no screen, and I can open up the other window, but that's, you know, that's not much of a draft. So,
I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not aware of your name or building number. I don't think I've...
Nicole Turley.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. Yes,
Yeah.
so that's actually a good point, and that may be something we can add to our preventative maintenance checklist to, you know, at least we can get a gauge of who needs screens, and then we can evaluate that as we're going back through, but at least a notation initially, and then, you know, to fix the problem next step. But that is a good point, because we do come across a lot of houses that, you know, may or may not have issues with screens, and that would be a good, during our preventative maintenance, to get an oversight on who all needs that. So thank you.
Because, like, one of the things that they first tell you is that, you know, well, your bathroom's probably going to have mold, so make sure you ventilate. And like I was telling the general, like, I have a cat that was, like, he went into kidney failure, and he's doing a little bit better now, but, like, I've seen him go to jump up on the windowsill and almost fall out the window because there's nothing there to stop him. So, and my kids, I'm like, 2 of them are older, so I hope that they're smarter than to hang off the window, but I do have a 3-year-old also. So,
Absolutely.
you know, I think that's a big safety issue. And then the other thing, I just wanted to know what the hunt maintenance qualifications are for replacing HVAC systems, because Hunt maintenance came and replaced our stuff, and our furnace is rigged up to fit. Basically, it's like taped together. There's tubes, there's trash in there, like. So I'm not sure what their qualifications are to actually do it.
Yeah, so anybody that deals or works on an HVAC system, they have to be HVAC certified, and it's an EPA universal HVAC certification that they hold. So I believe Chad, when he was here, and one other person actually installed the AC, and both of them were the EPA HVAC certified. However, I would like to come by and take a look at it, and we can definitely have all service, which is rated A with the BBC, who we use really for a majority of our installations of HVAC and even our duct work. Take a look at it and see what we can do to make that better.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have one thought too.
You can go to her. She's been
Okay.
here so long.
Go ahead, ma'am, please.
Hi, my name is Brandy Kennedy. I'm actually a civil servant on base here at Randolph. We did the same thing. We moved on to Randolph for the awesome schools here. We really love it. We love the community. But we're also suffering from the same things that everybody's talked about. Roaches crawling on the walls, ants coming up the drains, everything that we've tried, it really doesn't do much to help. Our main safety concern for our children, we have 4 children, that's why I'm here today advocating for them on their behalf, is we PCS from overseas about a year ago, and we had never really had any health issues before with them, other than well baby checkups, you know, random cold flu here and there. But in the past 6 months, my children have been in and out of the urgent care. I'm sorry. Strep throat. They've been on and off antibiotics repeatedly. My daughter cries at night because her ears hurt so bad. There's blood from her ears at times. She's just getting off of antibiotics for another double ear infection. My son gets bloody noses at night. It's become a norm. He brings his bedding down in the morning. Bud, why is your bedding down here? He's 14. I know he didn't wet the bed. Well, Mom, I got another bloody nose. It's become a norm in our house. My middle son wakes up coughing at night so bad that he's thrown up before. It's got to be the house. We know it's got to be the mold. We've seen mold on the vents. My children have never been sick like this, and I hate to see them on antibiotics like this. I consider myself a very homeopathic person. I don't like to be giving them medication if I don't have to be, because I know it's not good for them to be on antibiotics like that. But it's gotten so bad that the strep has been so bad to the concerns of meningitis because my son's neck and spinal cord hurting so terribly bad, crawling up in the fetal position because his neck is in so much pain. So my concern is primarily the mold. And then I guess my second question, or my last two questions would be, will the lead testing and the school offer be good for a civil servant since I'm not military? All right, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm so sorry for the health issues that your children are experiencing. If you don't mind, also, everyone that has had the health issue concerns, if we could also get your name. I know some of you have senior homes specifically, so I have your names. But if I haven't met you yet, then if you could give your name to Ed, we'd like to just circle back with you. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. No, I know that one of your friends, I think, expressed similar that they don't have any top cover, they don't have a commander. And this is more for Hunt, so they feel very much vulnerable to the system, and that when their contract's up, if they've been bringing forward issues that haven't been resolved and continue to do that, will they be forced to move off base or their contract won't be renewed?
So the answer is no to that specific question. There are what we call tiers of the waterfall, which based upon occupancy, if we're at 98% occupancy or better, we're obligated by our closing documents to start kind of phasing out some of the lower tier waterfall tenants. But that's something that we can discuss on a specific case-by-case basis. So the short answer is no, not in a retaliatory manner whatsoever, based upon complaints or service requests or even so much as payment history or anything like that. But based upon our closing documents, if we're in a position occupancy-wise where we need to make room for target tenants, which are active duty military members with families, we do have some availability to kind of shuffle the stack, if you will, and make sure that we have the homes available for our. No, no. The only target that would happen as a result of allowing them to move off base would be if our occupancy exceeded the waterfall parameters of the waterfall.
And I do know the individual that you're speaking about, and I know a lot of people have left tonight, but I want everybody in this room to know that I always have an open door. I'll give my cell phone number out. A lot of people know where I live. At any hour, any time, I've always been available to every resident on this installation. And I know. Yeah.
Like that one time I called the high-ups. The high-ups never called me back. You know? It's like a joke. It's like, we understand we have we have your number free, but there's only so much you can do. That's like we've had enough. And it's not to the point where not Congress has to step in. Like, it's sad. It shouldn't have been this way.
So to your point about calling the higher-ups, I think so in previous, right, so in previous situations, everybody would just kind of Google Hunt Corporate and call Hunt Corporate. And we do have a fantastic network of people that work out of El Paso, which is where HMC is headquartered. We have developed, it will be rolled out via one call and probably Facebook here, I would probably say within the next couple of days. We have partnered with a company that it's going to be a dedicated customer service line. similar to what AFCEC is doing on the Air Force side. It will be a dedicated customer service line, not affiliated with us, but contracted by us, if that makes sense, to make sure that it goes through the appropriate people. So, you know, just like the telephone game, if you call corporate and yeah, and so typically that probably would have come to me in most instances. I can't tell you the last time I received a data call for Randolph, and I would have to dig through myself. Okay. Yeah, and so again, that customer service accountability is something we know we have to work on. And as a result, like I said, there'll be more information forthcoming about the 1-800 dedicated customer service line, where we will have trackers. So if you call in, very similar to our on-call service request that isn't infallible, but we have a paper trail of who called, when they called, what their concerns were, who the data was handed off to. Was it elevated to my level? Was it given to Audra? Does it need to go straight to my boss or my boss's boss? We don't know, but we'll have that paper trail to be able to have some accountability on the customer service side. So stay tuned for more on that.
Thank you all very much. So, ma'am, you'll be the last Q&A for today, if that's all right.
All right.
So again, thank you, everyone.
Okay, so this will be kind of repetitive, for I know I've already talked to Audra and to you, ma'am, and to you. I just wanted to go, this is so short for me, I feel like I need to pick this up. Okay, so when we got here, we decided to live on base because we were coming from overseas. My husband got sent to a training in Virginia en route to here, and we've been overseas for 6 years. We didn't know anything about Texas. Our family dynamic's unique, so I wanted to make sure he was in a safe location because of our race, you know. And we chose it for the schools because we saw that it was a 10. And I mean, how are you going to turn that down? Like, as a teacher, I wanted my daughter to have the best, right? So we moved into our house after we were told it was going to be move-in ready in 8 days. And it was a mess. Broken cupboards, doors that wouldn't shut, carpets that were full of ants, toilets that were flooding, fridges that were literally smelled like someone had left their like pork in there and just let it die for like months in the heat. I mean, it was a horrible experience, to be honest. I just kept calling my husband in Virginia and just laughing. Because I'm like, babe, guess what happened today? You know, and he felt awful. He couldn't be there to help me. We're trying to transition with jet lag. She has to start kindergarten a week after we got here, you know. So anyways, that's just like, if you're gonna say it's move-in ready, it should be move-in ready. Like, I shouldn't have to put in a work order and then get nasty. Pretty much I had to get upset. And that shouldn't happen. I shouldn't have to get upset. My husband shouldn't have to call from Virginia. You know what I mean? Like, and I've noticed that's a trend here, where if I have a concern, if I call multiple times, nothing gets done. The second my husband steps in, suddenly it's done the next day. And that makes me feel very belittled as the spouse because I am the one holding down the house while my husband works. I am the one that's back here making sure everything's in working order. We still have an oven door that does not work. We still have a dishwasher that does not work. I don't mind doing my dishes. I can do them in the sink. We have a sink that's so small I cannot wash my pots in it without pouring water all over our floors. Then I have the concern about, you're gonna charge us for electricity so we can keep our houses cold or hot, right? But then the insulation's not there. The single pane windows right next to the flight line are unacceptable. Those need to be double pane. They need to help keep that noise out because it's very bad for my children to hear all night. And I get that they don't fly, but they do sometimes at night. I have a son that naps, and he can't nap when that is such a loud noise all the time. We had to have our we had to have our kitchen like basically caulked up because there was cockroaches coming in. Thankfully, I found out where all the holes were, and we've pretty much figured out that situation. There was cold air blowing through all of our cabinet areas. They finally filled those in for us, so we were actually able to bring our electricity bill down. But now it's like, I feel like people are getting charged extra money on top of what we're already paying because these houses are so old. You have to literally run your AC on full blast all day just to keep the basement, at the upstairs at like a comfortable level. And in the wintertime, you have to run your heat all day just to keep the basement at a comfortable level. Like, because there's no airflow from top to bottom. So we're being charged for that. And I don't think that's okay. Also, the parks. I want to talk about the parks because no one's mentioned the parks yet. I came on base because of the parks. I wanted my kids to have that playground where they could go play and be safe. The one by our house is rusted really badly. There's a bunch of damage on it. It's molded all over. The swings are too low to go on. It was a simple fix. It was never addressed. I felt like they purposely were not addressing it because they were just upset with me because I'm not a quiet spouse that just sits there and deals with things. I will come to you with my concerns. I'm never rude. I'm never disrespectful, but I will come to you. And I want my kids to have a safe playground to be at. You know, like that's what they push on their website. But like, they don't, if you zoom in on those websites, they're not the best playgrounds. Like there needs to be some kind of upkeep there, not all the damages, right? There's broken glass all over the edges of the playgrounds. And there's one more thing. The pool. Well, yeah, the pool needs to have a shallow end where the kids aren't going to fall into the 9-foot. That's crazy, but that wasn't it. I'm sorry. Oh, and then the whole reason of people look at you and they're like, then move off base. The reason why we live on base is for the safety. Also for when my husband TDYs or deploys, I know that I know I'm safe. Like, I don't want to put my family at risk by living off base when my husband's gone. Like, I don't know how to take care of them. We don't own a gun. I don't want to put guns in my house so I can protect myself. That's why we want to live on base. So people can say like, oh, if you move off base, you can still have the schools. Like, that's great, but like, I won't have that peace at night knowing that we're taken care of, you know? And I think that's another concern, is that we should be able to have a healthy place to live in a safe location, but it needs to be safe not only from crime, but also from toxins and from, you know, those type of things. So anyway, thank you for coming. I really appreciate you guys being here. And I'm sorry if it's repetitive for some of you, but I wanted to address those to you guys as well.
So again, thank you, everybody. So before we do any kind of closing comments, we do want to note that, again, there are Hunt folks in the back that, you know, if you want to give your information. Also, we'll be here after the town hall meeting, that if you want to come up and talk with us, we'll be available. That's not an issue for us. Time's not a factor. It's important that we listen to your concerns and we at least get them identified so we can start taking action to try to get them resolved. So with ma'am, I'll turn it over to you.
So again, thank you all for coming, and thanks for letting us come to your homes. I know we got to see some of you up close and spend at least an hour with many of you, and we appreciate that. If you didn't have a visit to your home and you'd like one, please let us know. I've got a team here that's ready and willing to come out and document all the issues that you have with your homes. I also wanted to thank our leadership team and thank Hunt Housing for being here tonight. You guys are our mission partners, and we are grateful for that partnership. We will work together to resolve these issues. And for the person, I can't remember who, that brought up the account, I think it was yourself, the accountability at the contract level, that's also part of our job. AFCEC, I thought they were going to have a rep here tonight. I don't think they did, but that's their portfolio, and so that's our responsibility as well. So if you're not getting the support you need, or you need increased accountability, that's my job, but that's also the Air Force's job too. So I'm their liaison between you and the Air Force Civil Engineering Center too. So with that, thank you all again for coming tonight. It's not the end of the conversation. As many of you have mentioned, there is accountability here and there is a future. So that's part of the next step. So where do we go from here? That's my responsibility to make sure that we have a plan and a way ahead. Thank you all. Thanks for your time. And again, we appreciate everything. We appreciate the kids who hung in there. Thank you for that. Next time, I think we'll try to arrange some childcare, so that might make it easier for some of you to either come or stay a little bit longer. So thanks a lot. Have a good night.